Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 27, the season finale, as we've decided we will call it, for the Dragon Reborn. I am your host Mo, and I'm joined again by my affable friends Jody,
Jafar, Kree.
and Willie.
Goedenavond.
Okay, Will, let's start with you. What was that?
Just Dutch. I decided to just go straight back to the roots.
Okay,
The old roots.
Yes, there's a direct line from us to that.
Yeah.
And Jody, what was that?
I've recently started a rewatch of Stargate. And that's
Okay.
it's just like one of the lines. It's not a very developed language the aliens have. It's just, they use that line for literally any situation. You want some ice cream? Jafar, Kree. Yeah, okay.
Is that from the Gua'uld, or what are they called?
Yes. The Jafar, or the servants of the Gua'uld. The warriors.
Okay. Did you guys ever watch an animated show called The Pirates of Blackwater?
No.
It was a kids' Saturday morning cartoon years ago on KTV, which would only make sense to South Africans. But they had these made-up swear words, and these pirates would use them all the time. Like when they exclaimed something like "fucking hell" or something, it was always "noichi tat," which I thought was like a pretty interesting choice for a kids show, because they would use it like proper cuss words. Like when something was like, "I need to break free of these fucking chains," the guy would say, "I need to break free of these chitatan chains." Like they would morph the word to fit like a proper cuss word, which is a choice. That's what it is. That's what that sounds like to me, Joe.
Okay. Yeah.
So here we are again, another book down. Wow. I can't believe we finished 3 of them already. I'm kind of worried that there aren't enough of them.
No one said no one ever.
Yeah, that's not true.
Let's speak in 3 years when we're still busy with it.
Yes, when we've decided to only cover 2 chapters per episode because we are rambling way too much. All jokes aside, this is going to be another banger of a finish. The last couple chapters of this book obviously accelerate in a massive way. Everything hits the fan at the same time, and it's actually kind of over pretty quick, which I think might even be to its detriment, but we'll cover that at the end when we have our sort of final thoughts about the book. So we'll do our normal thing. We'll do each of the last couple chapters. We'll do the summary, and then our thoughts about it, and at the end we'll pick our favorite moment from this stretch, and then we'll have a bit of a chat about the book as a whole and what our favorite moments are from the entire book. But before we do that, let's do one last Dragon Reborn flavored section we like to call callbacks. Number 1. In the previous episode, we said that the episode might be a bit shorter because of the number of chapters we were covering. It was not. It was one of the longer ones. Which is amazing to me, because it didn't feel like we were rambling an excessive amount or padding it out in any way. We were just having a straightforward conversation like we would have ordinarily. And we went well over 2 hours.
Yeah, so brace yourselves for this one, people.
Yeah, strap in. We asked, where does Nynaeve say that she'll try to follow the 3 oaths? And she says it first in Swan's study, where Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine are returned to the tower. Swan hints at them, using the power almost as a weapon against those White Cloaks, and Nynaeve quickly says that they'll do their best to live as if they've taken the 3 oaths. And then it's only 2 chapters later, because they're in the office for a long time, in Swan's study for a long time, and later Elaine is sent away, and then Egwene and Nynaeve leave. And as they're walking down the hallway, Egwene says to Nynaeve, "I hope you didn't mean what you said about the 3 oaths. I'll use the power in self-defense." To which Nynaeve then responds, "I meant it. There are other ways to defend ourselves, and also I can do it. I must, if I'm to stay here long enough to learn, and I must learn if I'm to..." And then she trails off, and she quickly gives Egwene a look, and then sort of just hushes up. So Nynaeve is actively trying to follow the 3 oaths, even though she's not an Aes Sedai, so that she can stay in the tower to learn something. And I wanted to know if you guys had any idea what that might be.
Fuck up Moiraine.
Learn to love land.
I think it's like revenge. I think she wants to
Steal
have
land.
enough. She's really got land.
But would she phrase it that way? Like, I need to stay here long enough to learn, maybe to learn to use the power effectively in such a way that I can have my revenge on Moiraine. But I also had a thought that maybe it was land related, that she could learn how to maybe sever the bond between Lan and Moiraine and have Lan to herself or something along those lines.
Moiraine is involved somewhere.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's the motivating force for Nynaeve to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
While waiting for Julian in Mother G's home, Egwene reads or tries to read 2 books: The Travels of Jane Fastrider and a book of humorous tales by an author named Illyria Elfin. Now, we mentioned that, maybe there is some significance to this name or that book. And I went and I scoured the internet and I couldn't find any obvious references to anything, except that a lot of people seem to think that, this is kind of a veiled reference to the Aelfin and the Eilfin, because the name is Illyria Elfin, and even Elfin is spelled with 2 Fs. It's like a weird spelling.
I remember reading that. It was still sort of a bit of a think.
Yeah, and the book is also a book of humorous tales, which we know that in the story. Now, look, obviously, I'm potentially reaching quite far here, but we've read about, Len flying to the moon in the belly of a fiery eagle, and the giants, which roughly equate to the US and Russia, sort of, being in a Cold War and that sort of stuff. All these legends that have faded to myth and then sort of faded from memory, right? Like that's the line. How these classic stories that we know of have been morphed into something else completely different. And I wonder if, there are some old accounts of encounters with the Aelfin and the Eilfin that maybe over time have morphed into what they now seem to think are humorous stories, like fables where someone lost an arm or something, like, how some of those old tales can sometimes be quite brutal. Like, yeah, I like to think that maybe this is a collection of stories of stuff that actually happened via the Aelfin and the Eilfin some time ago, and because so much time has passed, they are now just passed off as these humorous stories and these fables.
And herewith we have learned of the decapitation of Queen Zenobia.
and like henceforth she walked the world searching for her head, but unable to find it because she can't see. Like a lot of those old tales take on these like absurdist things, but a lot of the stuff the Aelfin and the Eilfin do is absurd and would seem magical.
I mean, Red Riding Hood, just off the top of my head, a wolf eats the little girl's grandmother, and then a hunter chops open the wolf's stomach with an axe and rips the grandmother out of its stomach. Like, that's hectic shit, man.
Yeah. Anyway, we asked if that book is significant. It isn't, and now I'm going to fill in that space with my own canon. We touched on the fact that Tom is very invested in the fate of the girls, and that, he's helping Matt out despite being sick and that sort of stuff. I'm disappointed in all 3 of us as rereaders of the series for not bringing up the fact that Tom has a very real connection with Elaine.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
Like we've all forgotten that, he used to bounce Elaine on his knee as a kid. Like he knows her well. Yeah. So obviously he has a very real reason to try and find the girls. But, he never hints at it here. That he and Morghese has a history at this point in the story as a new reader. But it's only later when he and Elaine actually cross paths. And she's like, I know you from somewhere. And she's like playing with his moustache and stuff, like almost reverting to an almost childlike state around him. That makes Tom quite uncomfortable at the time as well. That you realize that Tom actually knows her very well. So obviously he's motivated to go find her and save her.
Yes, of course, Moritz. Go back and edit all our previous episodes to put mentions.
I'll Tommy Wiseau it. Then we wondered whether anyone has ever tried to breach the Stone of Tear. And as we find out in these very last chapters, that apparently it's been besieged 100 times and 100 armies have broken their teeth against it. So yes, it has been besieged and it has never fallen. Another one we were talking about is we were surprised that Moiraine doesn't seem to draw any kind of link between the Aiel and the prophecy. It comes up again in these chapters, but we had a little bit of a chat about it last time. So I volunteered to go read the Careerthon cycle to find any quotes that might have any relevance to the Aiel themselves, and I found a couple. The first one is, "And he who shall be born of the dawn, born of the maiden according to prophecy, he shall stretch forth his hands and catch the shadow." Now, I don't think Moiraine ever hears the phrase "he who comes with the dawn," but like Perrin does from Gaul and from Urien. Like they say that they are out seeking he who comes with the dawn. I can't remember if the three maidens in Steading Sofu say anything about it or if it comes up there, but some of the characters in our story have heard it, but Moiraine, I don't think, has been told it. Like, I don't think Perrin has shared that level of detail with her. But it does say "born of the maiden," according to prophecy. Now, maybe, being the Aiel lover that I am, when I hear the word maiden, even in my everyday life, I immediately picture a maiden of the spear. But the word maiden itself obviously has its own literal meaning that has nothing to do with the Aiel. So I'll give Moiraine a pass on that one. But there is a very clear link there, obviously, to maidens of the spear. Moiraine does know that Rand was born during the Aiel War, because Moiraine was in the Amyrlin study as he was born during the Aiel War. So, born of the maiden, I don't know, maybe there is a tenuous line there that on a clear day Moiraine would have connected, but I'll give her a pass. But then later in the prophecy there is a line that says "born of a maiden wedded to no man." Okay, here's another reference to a maiden. We know that the maidens of the spear, I mean, I'm pretty sure that it's known in Wetlander culture as well that the maidens don't marry, that they're wedded to the spear.
I see what you're getting at, but there's the word maiden can literally be interpreted as anything.
Yes.
A young woman, a virgin, the virgin miraculous birth or whatever. We just have a lot of Aiel lore in our brains already. Like when we hear maiden, even out in the streets now, I'd go like, "Ooh, Aiel." So
that's what I mean. Like when I hear the word maiden, the first thing I picture is a maiden of the spear, and not
you
the
both disappoint me.
Use. Why?
Every time I hear maiden, I think it's one of the Proteobolus that called maiden over.
Yeah, so okay, look, I'll give Moiraine another pass on that one. There's another line in there that says he will be born, or he will be of the ancient blood, raised by the old blood. So obviously Moraine's not going to know that the Aiel are the ancient blood. Only the clan chiefs and the wise ones know that. Raised by the old blood Manetheren, even if Moiraine knew that, that is no link to the Aiel. Then there's another line that the stone of Tyr will never fall till Calandor is wielded by the dragon's hand, and the stone of Tyr will never fall till the people of the dragon come. She says in these chapters she didn't know that the Aiel were referred to as the people of the dragon, and Ruach says, only the clan chiefs do, maybe the wise ones do, but they don't know. You can only speak for the clan chiefs. So that's another pass for Moiraine. From the city lost and forsaken, leads the spears to war once more, breaks the spears and makes them see truth long hidden in the ancient dream. All very, very Aiel, but Moiraine wouldn't know any of that.
Yeah. So spears are a pretty ubiquitous weapon. I mean, all nations have spears.
But to refer to like leading the spears to war when you know that the Aiel use spears almost exclusively.
Moritz, I feel that you're reaching. I am 100% on board with you. Like to us, I'm just thinking that to Moiraine, who's got a lot of shit on her plate, like studying those finer words and picking out maiden and spear. Like now in hindsight, yeah, obviously, but yeah. To someone that's not looking for it, I'm going to give Moiraine a pass on this one. Yeah.
Would you give Verin a pass on that one? Or any Brown studying the Careerthon cycle, looking for any potential meanings?
No, they have no excuse.
Agreed.
All right.
But yeah, that's it. That's our final callback section for the Dragon Reborn, which is not to say that we won't have many corrections to make for the Dragon Reborn as we progress even through the next 11 books. Does that number make you sweat, Jody?
Wiping my forehead. Oh.
All right, so let's move along from callbacks. Let's set the scene for this episode's chapters. So previously on Blood and Ashes, Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine arrive in Tyr. They take up lodging with a local wise woman and enlist the services of a thief catcher and a local ladies' man, Julian Sandar, to find the 13 Black Archer sisters. Perrin, Moiraine, Lan, Loyal, and Aiel arrive in Tyr, and they take up lodging next to a smithy where Perrin flexes his smithing muscles, literally and figuratively, and gets a new hammer for his efforts. Moiraine confirms that Belal rules in Tyr. Matt and Tom arrive in Tyr and immediately start their search for the girls and Komar, finding the latter and killing him. Maybe a little prematurely. A little bit of luck.
Nah, never prematurely.
And then finally, at the end of last week's episode, we had Julian betraying the girls, albeit under Leandrin's compulsion, and delivers them to the Black Archer, who capture them and haul them off to the Stone of Tyr as bait for a trap and potentially to be converted using the 13 Sisters and 13 Madral. And even Rand is spotted a couple times, as are the Aiel. And that brings us to this episode, starting with chapter 52, called In Search of a Remedy. Take it away, Jody.
Yes, indeed. We're in search of a remedy. That search that Matt and Tom started immediately as they arrived was in the middle of the night during a storm, and nights and nights and nights of that have resulted in Tom getting very, very sick. Started with just a little bit of a cough, but now he is in a bad way. So he's pretty much useless on any hunt for anyone. He can't really talk to anybody because he just starts coughing in their faces, and no one's keen to have a chat with a guy that's coughing in your face. And also, Matt is worried about him. He's an old man, and he is clearly not well. He's doubling over in pain every time he coughs. It's not a good sight. So anyway, they find out Lopar, who tells them that, listen, there's an old wise woman that I know of near the port. You should go and check her out and get some medicine. So they do. So, of course, this is contrary to Tom's protests. He's like, I don't need anybody, blah, 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 etc., etc. Grumpy old man doesn't want to take his medicine, so it doesn't matter because he's so weak that Matt just picks him up and carries him out anyway. And they head down to the mall to go and find this. And on the way, Matt is even thinking, like, man, I probably would have passed right by this wise woman's house the night we arrived in the city, because I remember this route, and sure as shit, he looks when he finds the house, he's like, man, this is the exact same house that I saw in that brief flash of lightning that illuminated the streets. My bloody luck. On day one, if he had just turned right there, he would have found her. The luck was right there, right at the beginning, and he just overlooked it. Silly boy, but it doesn't matter. He'll learn to trust it later on.
And exploit it to no end.
Indeed. So anyway, he takes Tom to the front door. There's a bit of knocking. Mother G is not answering. We know why. They don't. But eventually she does answer the door, and she's all sullen and wallowing in self-pity. But she lets them in. You know, she is a medical professional. So she needs to get on with it. And she sees that Tom is not in a good spot and that he needs to come inside and get some medicine. So she starts working already on one of her teas and one of her vile tasting concoctions, which she forces down Tom's throat with his protests. What?
Do you think she made a concoction based on her herbs that she knows, or on knowledge gained from her herb off with 9 years? Because
Billy just wanted to use herb off again in a sentence.
Yes.
We see through you, Billy. I don't know. I can't tell you the truth. You're going to have to ask Mother G about that.
and it's Mother Joanna.
She just did it, you know, she was accustomed to doing it. Like it was a habit for her. So perhaps not a new recipe.
She's an older wise woman in a city with, damp air. I'm sure she's treated a cough or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She has her go-to recipe, which apparently is fucking awful. But there it is.
It's always awful, right? Like all these herbal medicines are always terrible.
There's a point here where Matt looks out the back window and he notices 3 very fine-looking horses tied up out back, and he's like, "Oh, horses. It's very odd to see horses in this town. He hasn't seen anybody, and those are some nice looking horses.
I like how Matt has inherited his dad's ability to also judge the quality of a horse. Like,
Yes.
these are fine horses, not just 3 horses.
Yes, those are good flanks. Let's have a look at their teeth. I don't know how to look at a horse. Apparently, their teeth are important.
He also noticed before he walked in the hoof prints in the mud.
And the carriage
of
tracks.
horses and the carriage tracks.
Oh,
Comments on them.
Right with his luck that he thought about the house and his luck. It's like, again, I should listen to my luck. Luck points something out. That's odd. Let's carry on.
I wonder if he could see that they were ominous carriage tracks. This looks like a dangerous, dark painted one.
There seems to be an aura of cackling around these tracks.
Yes. So anyway, he notices Mother G's accent, and it reminds him, of course, of that one time that he met the ambulance seat and had a fine little chat with her, as regular people do. And he mentions this to her as well, that, hey, I've actually met a woman before who had your accent. You remind me a lot of her. And she comments back like, hey, speak of the devil. I've also met a few people with your accent. Well, there were 3 women here. 2 of them had your accent. And Matt's like, no, seriously? Could my luck be that good? Yes, Matt. Yes, it can. So, yeah, he finds out that they've been there and it's not been 3 hours since they left. Literally,
wow.
The words 3 hours are written in this thing. So
yeah.
Mother G is hesitant to give him the whole story. He's like, tell me what happened. Where are they? I've been searching for them. This man is dying. Look at Tom because of this search, trying to find them. But she is very hesitant to give the whole story. Obviously, her life has been threatened. She's just witnessed something horrific. Women who can channel have been threatening her and tying her up with the one power, and they beat the crap out of these girls in front of her eyes. So she's terrified. But Matt, the charming rogue that he is, eventually gets her to give him the information that he requires. And then he's like eventually relieved to find out that it was Aes Sedai. He's like, oh, right, you had me so worried. Like, they want to be Aes Sedai, so don't worry about it. And then Mother G's like, no. They fought like caged animals against these women that came to get them. They are not friends. Don't be fooled. So he's like, all right, I need to go and save them. So Mother G tells him, like, well, they were working for the High Lord, and so they've taken these girls to the Stone of Tyr. So, you might as well give up now. They're you're not going to be able to rescue them. But Matt decides he's going to do it anyway, obviously. He's come all this way. He now knows where they are and where they've been and what's going on. So he gives old Mother G 2 Andorran crowns of gold and a kiss on the cheek, as is what he does. And he leaves Tom there for her to look after, because Tom is going to be no good, especially later on when there's running around on roofs in the dark. It just would have... He needs to be sneaky, and a old man coughing his lungs out kind of gives away your position quite easily. So, but Tom is, again, not happy to be left with this woman that's going to force concoctions down his throat. But again, too weak to resist. Mother G just holds him down in his chair with one hand. She just leans on him and he can't get up. But then again, she is a surprisingly strong woman. So maybe that's that, but he's pretty much weak.
Used to drowning, quarreling men in barrels.
Yeah.
Can't hold an old man down.
Core muscles,
Big traps.
Yeah, so anyway, he leaves Tom behind, and his last line as he walks out the door is, I've enjoyed knowing you, as a joke, and then realizes afterwards, shit, maybe I shouldn't have said that. He's probably not going to die, but it's a funny quip that I thought we should mention. So outside, when he's in the street again, he looks up at the stone and goes over his quote-unquote plan in his head. It's so ridiculously bad that he didn't laugh out loud to himself, which startles people in the roads around him. And I've kind of broken down his plan here. His plan is, step 1, get into the stone. Step 2, save Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine. That's it. That's what he's got so far.
It's easy. Two simple steps.
Yes. Step 1, get inside. Step 2, get them out. Ta-da! And this is for the first time that he feels the dice tumbling in his head. I think this is the first time. This is what I recall, at least. Because this comes up every time.
When he murdered Komar,
did he hear it there as well?
Felt the dice as well.
he felt like everything shift around him. He had this like
Mm.
real like visceral reaction to his luck working against those loaded dice. But I don't know if it was specifically the dice tumbling. Here we go. First Dragon Reborn flavored
First callback.
for the Shadow Rising episode 1.
Thanks, Billy.
I'll go check.
Yeah,
I'll
but I
do
mean,
the
that
homework.
dice tumbling in his head thing comes up a lot now, and I think this is the first time I've read about it, at least. Although I could be wrong, which I usually am. And that's how the chapter ends, with him and his half-baked bloody plan heading off to the stone to save the girls.
Matt.
Short and sweet.
Loving everything about Matt. He says about Tom, if the old goat dies on me, who will I play stones with?
Yeah, exactly.
That's his thought process. He's even like being like just, totally non-serious to himself. It's not just outward, it's inward as well. Like he sort of charms himself. His inner monologue is also charming.
Yeah, definitely charms Mother G there. She tells him in the end there, you remind me of my husband.
Yeah. Who's
After
dead,
he gives a
so
kiss.
beware.
When Matt says, I've enjoyed knowing you, Tom, does he acknowledge that that's sort of like a joke, or does he say that because I wrote my notes a little while ago now when I read soon after our last recording, but I thought it was maybe because Matt thought there's a good chance he is not actually going to make it back.
No, he said it jokingly, but he does reflect on it when he's outside again. He realizes,
Okay.
why the fuck did I say that? Because it is. Then he realizes that it could actually be the last time he sees him.
Yes.
I suppose in context in that moment, she's like, Tom didn't want to stay there and get forced rubbed stinky ointments on his chest and drinking dung tasting herb concoctions. And Matt just right off that's like, if you make it type of thing, I'll see you then. Right after that.
If you survive
I
Mother
took it
G.
Completely joking.
Yeah, me too.
But then the seriousness of that statement actually sank in right outside. Because, I mean, he is going full speed ahead at the Stone of Tyr. Matt from Eamon's Field. This is not just stealing
With
honey
the
cakes.
quarterstaff and some fireworks.
Dynamite. Yes.
And I think it's in this chapter where they mention that the stone has been besieged 100 times and armies have always broken their teeth.
Yes, armies, not a single mat. They'll never see a single mat coming. No one's prepared for the single mat.
No one expects a single mat.
No.
Anything else? That's a pretty, compared to the others, I mean, that's...
okay. That chapter is
Cool.
uncharacteristic for what's coming next, people.
Yes.
I'm very surprised that I'm done with that already.
Maybe should have carved that one off into the previous episode.
Yeah. Well, too late now.
Sure is. Well then, guys, let's keep going. Let's get into the fray here. Chapter 53 is called A Flow of the Spirit. Willie, take it away.
Right, now we're back with Perrin. He has had another day of hammering away in the smithy, which I think he's really happy with. Other than the, normal old tools he had to make, he was given an ornamental piece to make. And then at first he thought it might have been for a high lord. And he was straight outright said, I will not make anything for them to master a jala. But it turned out it's just for a standard lord somewhere out for his farm gate, so he can have an ornamental piece in there. But he could show off some of his crafting skills other than just making rudimental tools. The whole time he's having his little inner dialogue with himself because File is, instead of, he's whinging like, yeah, I know we got to stay close to the inn, we were told. And they all for once is listening. They're staying close to the inn. But he is always aware of File being there, looking at him, hanging out with him, sitting there, staring at his back. But he can't get, obviously, out of his head. And they've finished up the day and started making their way back from the smithy to the inn, the Star. And on sort of at the footsteps of the Star, they meet up with Lan and Moiraine, who's got news. And she doesn't hold back. It's like, Bilal is in Tyr. That's it. I found out all the good things. We got to go, and this is too dangerous. I will be taking him on tonight. You guys will be leaving for Tavalon right away." And Lan is like, and she's like, "No, sorry, my guide. We will be taking him on tonight." And for the first time here, Perrin is like, "Oh, some fucking, we got to go." It's not really protesting, but not really happy. Whereas Phila's like, "Yeah, you don't need a second invitation. I'm not there to fight the Forsaken. Like,
she's
fuck
already
this
gone.
noise.
Yeah.
Like, don't
Peace out.
let me go. I'm gonna go pack." And literally does the running upstairs to get Loyal and tell him this news. And Perrin shortly behind him, behind her, Moiraine and Lan. And as he sort of heads past the common room up to their own private dining room, he hears a muted thud of someone like falling on a wooden floor. And he immediately sort of thinks, "File," like off the bat. And he runs towards the room. And before he can even make it into the room, Moiraine barks out a stop command that freezes him down. And she gets there as quickly as she can, but she can still feel and sense the activation of this trap, and it's all just woven in spirit. But it's a trap that's set, and he's like, "Well, the trap has fallen. Like, why can't I go in to help her?" He couldn't see her breathing. Vael now lying on the floor. He even tried to listen for a heartbeat from where he's standing, but to no avail. Can't see her breathing, can't hear a heartbeat, and Moiraine is like, "No, I got to think. Like, what is this?" And notices there's something that's kind of fallen out of her hand on the floor, and she can't see what it is, and they can't go into the room. So she's like, "Okay, Golden Eyes, have a little look there." Perrin has a look, and he sees, "Oh, you mean that little dark hedgehog wood carving lying over there?" And I don't think it snaps immediately with her right there and then, but Perrin is starting to push her quite a bit. What do you mean? What do you talk about? What's we going to do? Aren't you going to help her? What can we do? And she eventually is like, "There was a terangrial of a stolen, small little hedgehog that was stolen as part of the ones. So they know she's there. That's the number one thing."
Does Moiraine know that the hedgehog terangrial was stolen?
Yes, because remember, they had a list of all the things.
Varen gave a list to Egwene.
Oh, right.
No, but so there is mention there that you have to go read this chapter again. All three of us read this chapter and still don't remember. But she says, like, yeah, there was a hedgehog terangrial stolen that was last studied by Corianan and Aiel.
Does she say it was stolen, or there is a hedgehog terangrial that was last studied by Korean?
Okay, I don't know if it was stolen, but she knows the hedgehog terangrial, and she knows who last studied it.
Yeah, she knows that, but she doesn't know it's stolen.
Yes.
That's quite right.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah, just before that, they obviously there's something that I just glossed over that I forgot myself. I'll get back to that. So there she is, like, don't go in. This is a trap, but this has obviously changed everything now. The luck for her and Lan is that Bilal would have felt that the trap is set, and he would expect that she's captured or she and Lan is captured. So they have the element of surprise to sort of go in and take him, and they have to jump to that. There's no way that they can let off on that opportunity. And Perrin is like, "Well, I'm not leaving her here," and she's like, "Well, do what you want. Like, this is your decision. Like, do what you want. If you want to stay here with her." And Wahal made his way down after Lan's gotten him, and he's kind of like, then he sees like, wow, this is Vael is not supposed to be caged like this. This isn't right, and actually growls, like pulls ears flat, growls like a good old Saint Bernard that has decided, "I don't like you all of a sudden."
Saint Bernard.
I'm not big and fluffy anymore. I'm now big and mean.
Exactly. But yeah, it's Moiraine has now. But just before this, while they were outside, Perrin had asked her, and she's like, "Rand is in the city," so she knows Rand is there as well. And she's like, Perrin's like, "Well, I haven't heard about weddings and rivers and wells drying up and anything." Lan still chirps like, "Yeah, sure, sheepherder, because you don't listen, blacksmith. Like, there's been 4 times more weddings in the last couple of days than they are in a year. And there's been more murders or 4 times more weddings in a certain period, and more murders than there's been in a whole year. Like, it's definitely he's here. There's a lot of things pulling at the pattern in this place. But with that, Moiraine and Lan make their way, and they are going to take on the stone. They're going to get their way into the stone. Now, Perrin stands there with Loyal helplessly, like, I need to do something. I can't not do anything and see her lying there, basically dying. And after he pushed Moiraine for a period of time, she's like, yeah, well, she might be caught in a dream. Her soul is like left her body. I'm not quite sure. And he's like, well, is this anything like the wolf dream? And she's like, I don't know. And Perrin doesn't want to. Yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit of a to and fro there. But Perrin decides, you know what, stuff this. And he's like, well, can you guard me? And and he sort of makes big fists with his ink-stained fingers. And he's like, none shall pass.
Hold the door.
Hold on. So Perrin just takes a dive, and he thought that he managed to make it to touch her ankle. And he's boomed. And he's like, okay, I'm in the wolf dream. Fields. And, oh, hey, Hopper. Hopper's like, young bull, what are you doing here? Like, haven't I told you
again?
This place is bloody dangerous. Like, what the hell? And he's like, no, this is serious. I need to find the falcon. This is a big problem. And he's like, well, you're going to die here. It's like, well, then I die here. I'm not going anywhere. So young bull and Hopper then decides to run off. And with that, Perrin realizes he's not a man anymore. He is now turned into a wolf, and a bigger wolf than Hopper. So even in his wolf form, he is a lot bigger than the rest. And they run off with this last little quote is, if we do not free the falcon, I do not care, brother. And then Hopper saying, then we hunt. Noses to the wind, the two wolves ran across the plain seeking the falcon.
And all readers got chills.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
It's when Hopper says, you'll die. And then Perrin says, if I don't find the falcon, I don't care. And then Hopper says, then we hunt, brother.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Goosebumps. Hey.
Yeah, totally. I was thinking of
It's
a t-shirt
amazing.
as well for this. Just some sort of wolf, and then we come, brother. Or that is the quote. What we need. That's the next shirt. I think we're going to have very Perrin-centric t-shirts.
Yes. Perrin does lend himself to t-shirts, doesn't he? So, Joe, did you have anything that stood out to you in that chapter? Anything you wanted to discuss? I had a couple of things stick out to me.
I did want to say it earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt, and now I've forgotten. So you go ahead. Maybe it'll spark.
Okay, see if I jog your memory.
Or you talk about it.
Perrin starts off the chapter still calling Fael Zareen.
Ah, that was it.
Was it?
Yes.
No ways. Okay. Excellent. Okay.
Take it away.
As a side note, I've told you guys before that when I do my notes, like when I read the chapters, I've got these old copies of the book, so I actually use a highlighter and I highlight the sections that I want to take notes for. And I found myself in these last couple chapters forgetting to use the highlighter. Like everything was like so action packed and so exciting the whole time. I forgot that I'm sitting with that open highlighter in my hand reading the book, and I'm forgetting to use it because I just want to read what happens. But this was, I mean, obviously Zareen was one of them. And then when Lan talks about, you don't pay any attention, blacksmith, and he's talking about the weddings and the murders and stuff, he also says, Berylane, the first of Moiraine, has been in the Stone of Tyr, and she is super, super stubborn, and she has not agreed to anything for years, blah, blah. She's got an iron will, but suddenly she's agreed to acquiesce to the High Lords of Tyr. And he ascribes that to Rand being Ta'veren, when we know, no, she's been captured. She's very much been imprisoned, and she's very much been compelled or something, by one of the Forsaken and the Black Archer to comply. I also like how Moiraine said of Belal, who is, again, a Forsaken, the line is, Moraine's reply was cold drawn steel. I will deal with him tonight. And there was no fear sent from her.
Yeah.
Fucking Moiraine. God, I love her. She's infuriatingly, obtuse when it comes to sharing information and stuff. But man, she is fearless and such a badass. And I will say it again, probably the most unsung hero of the series. Like, she brings it all together all the time. And I mean, in the end of this book, also, we'll get to
Yes.
that. But Perrin mentions that he's tired of running and he just wants to make a stand now, which is cool. You know, when Moiraine says you go to Tarvalon, and he's like, I don't want to run anymore. So the hedgehog terrangril, do you guys remember what its intended use is?
They didn't know. They knew it was something with Terlanrioid. But there
Yes.
was no real notes that they could make anything. It's like a non sort of descript little wood carved hedgehog.
In Varen's notes, it actually says that its intended use is that if you channel into it, you go to sleep for half a day. Peaceful, dreamless sleep.
All right. So Perrin could have just waited half a day and it would have all been over.
Maybe. But I mean, it's also like Fail didn't channel into it, so you don't know what weaves were set around it. It was probably just part of a larger, Sidar mechanism to get her in. Because, I mean, she was also, like Willie said, it looked like it had fallen from her hand. But Perrin didn't need to touch it to also be knocked out by it, So
Yeah,
who knows?
Just touching it sprang the trap.
The trap is sprung in that room. Yeah, that's how I understand it.
Yeah,
it's science, basic science.
At one point, when Perrin is getting frustrated because of Fail, right? Like, he's worried about Fail. He talks to Moiraine in a rough tone, and Lan shifts when he does. But Perrin notices, and he thinks to himself, he would try to break the water like iron over a hardy if the man tried to stop him.
Yeah.
Perrin knows exactly what Lan's about, but he's like, I'll try and break him.
Yeah, but I like the addition of the word try, because he's not that dumb to think, I will break him. But I'll try. I'll fail.
Yeah.
But I'm going to fucking give it a good shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had to go look up what a hardy is.
I just imagine it's a big block of steel.
It's actually like a tool. I'm waiting for Willie to chime in here to see if he.
Yeah, come on, Willie.
In an anvil, it's got that squarish hole on one end. That's called a hardy hole, and you get different tools that you're going to insert there.
Right,
so
and
like something that's shaped like something that's like a broad chisel, or like one half of a pincer. You put in that hardy hole, and then you can put a rod over it and break it. It's a bottom tool, and you get bottom tools and top tools, and the hardy is the bottom tool, and then you use something like a hammer or another pincer or something on top. But yeah, go Perrin, trying to break Lan. Fuck around.
Why didn't Lan tensed, but didn't make any moves?
Just because Perrin was only speaking in a rough tone, he didn't say.
He never
anything.
said anything though. Normally he would say like, "Hey, watch yourself" or something. Is it just like him evolving to accept that Perrin is becoming an equal?
Maybe subconsciously.
Shift in some.
He's letting Perrin get away
mentality.
with more than he used to. Maybe, yeah.
Maybe just giving up because Perrin is just such a disrespectful dick from day one. Like,
these two rivers folk,
yeah,
they're nothing if not stubborn.
Yeah. He's not even going to bother saying anything anymore.
Fael also tells him about a beard, while she's eyeing him walking back from the smithy. Have you thought of wearing a beard? Yeah.
In this time, when Perrin's worried about Fael, he also swears to himself that he will only ever call her Fael, so he's starting to turn in that direction now. He's admitting to himself that this is, you can see, he's oozing emotion, right? Like, he is reacting like someone who is smitten with this person who's in danger. He resolves to only ever calling her Fael. I'm a little bit, again, disappointed in Moiraine, who seems to already have forgotten Perrin's importance, or is happy to let his Taveran nature sort of dictate his own fate, because she's sort of like, remain if you wish, perhaps you will survive this night, and then Lan, and they leave. When she says to him, you need to go to Tarvalon, and Perrin says he's not gonna, she's like, okay, well, fine, fuck it, do whatever you want, Lan, let's go. Which is cold, but I don't know, what do you think? Like, is she just so dead set on her task at hand, or is she trusting in his Taveran nature to sort of guide him to where he needs to be? Just like chapters ago, she was saying, I've grossly underestimated how important the other 2 Taverin that I had under my wing are, and I need to pay more attention. Okay, bye, do what you want.
Well, at that moment, she's got to face Forsaken.
Maybe she feels like she could find him again.
Mm.
I don't know. Same thing, Lan. Like, Lan also didn't bother saying anything,
Yeah.
and she's also... Maybe that's what I'm saying. That maybe they are both just getting to that point now where they know that Perrin can handle himself and that he is Taverin, so he is important. Like, he can probably take care of himself. Nothing's going to happen to him. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. Don't know. Was noteworthy. Listeners, write in. What do you think? What's Moiraine playing at here? Someone get inside Moraine's head. Rosamund Pike, you've done a character study. Please write into the podcast and let us know what you think about Moraine's choice here. I know you're a listener.
Ambitious, Moritz. Ambitious.
Hey, aim high, miss high.
Yeah.
All right, should we move along?
Please. What's happening?
Let's do it.
Okey-dokes. What's happening is the next chapter, which is chapter 54, called Into the Stone. Friend of the show, Adrian, wrote in and said that whenever she misses her Wheel of Time friends, there are 2 chapters that she goes back to. The first is The Empty Road, chapter 1 of The Eye of the World, just to set the mood. And the other one is this one, Into the Stone. So, Adrian, I hope I do this one justice. So, this is a big chapter. It's a long one. There's a lot of stuff happening here. So, in my notes here, I say, keep it brief.
Why?
I'll try. Okay, so we join Matt, who is skulking on the rooftops near the Stone of Tyr, basically casing the joint, right? He's on the roof checking out how's he going to get inside. And he notices the sort of plazas around it are too wide. You can't get onto the stone from the buildings around it. And the only structure leading up to the actual wall of the stone itself is the wall of the city. He's carrying his staff, the fireworks in a bundle, and a small metal box with a wire handle that any amateur detective would guess contains something with which to light a fuse. Right? He's carrying the fireworks. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So the stone itself is 100 to 120 paces tall. So do you guys remember how long a pace is?
No.
It's basically a meter. It's 3 feet.
All right.
So, I mean, it's a tall structure. 120 meters tall that's way, way up. So there are a couple arrow slits lower down. So this is Matt obviously trying to see how he's going to get entry. But obviously Matt and no other human being will fit through an arrow slit. They are designed not to allow a human only arrows through them.
Thank you, Mark. Recap.
Hey. Oh. Look at me, Mr. Scientist over here. The city wall, like I said, runs right up to the stone, but it's only 1 meter wide. So, slightly precarious considering the fact that it is 20 spans high. Do you guys remember how long a span is?
Yes.
It's 2 paces.
Okay, good.
Okay, so the wall is like 40 meters high and it's 1 meter wide. So it doesn't exactly invite you in. I mean, that's understandable. This is supposed to be an impenetrable fortress, but there is a 1 meter wide, basically, path leading up to the wall 40 meters up from the ground. So Matt's looking at the stone thinking, I could probably climb that, but, it would be dicey. It's 120 meters to fall to a solid pavement at the bottom if he falls from near the top. It's death-defying to sort of get up there. He's also seen a number of gates around the place, and the gates are all locked, and even the gates that are locked are also guarded by a number of defenders of the stone. And as he's looking at the stone, he spots someone actually climbing it. And this person is already more than halfway up the wall. We know this is Rand. Rand is climbing the Stone of Tyr, and he is 60 meters or more, 70 meters up this like sheer wall that, as far as I remember, doesn't have any joints between the stones. Because remember, like the Aes Sedai used the one power to fuse them together so that there are no joints. I don't know what Rand is using as footholds and stuff here. Like this is expert level climbing. This is no Camelin Palace garden wall.
No.
So, I mean, what a feat, and also, what a cool visual, this tiny, like, human crawling up the side of the wall. So he's looking at this person climbing the wall, and then he's like, okay, he's also gonna try and scale the wall. The gates are not an option. He's gonna try and scale the wall. He's not gonna get in through an arrow slit. And as he's making this decision, he's just thinking to himself, I'm gonna demand kisses from all 3 girls for these efforts. Like, just having to throw his Matt comment in there, even to himself. But as he's made this decision, he feels steel at his throat out of nowhere. And he puts up a bit of a brief fight. He knocks someone down, but he's outnumbered by what we know are the Aiel. But Matt is still not caught on to the fact that these Aiel. It is the nighttime, it's in the dark, and that he is surrounded. So his natural defense mechanism is to turn on the charm.
Yeah.
So because he hasn't clicked that these are Aiel, he says, okay, look, chaps, I'll leave you to your work, and I won't call the alarm, assuming that they are thieves operating on the roof, right? But he just doesn't get an answer at all. So he figures, look, he just doesn't have time for this, and he thinks it's time to toss the dice because he's about to put up another fight. But as he says to himself, it's time to toss the dice, he thinks to himself that the words sounded weird in his own mind, so probably saying it in the old tongue again. And he prepares to actually, lay into these people again, but then I forget, he must be like sitting on the ground or like being knocked over because someone steps on his wrist, and he finally gives over. And this is when he sort of like looks up at the boots, the soft leather boots, and recognizes the cut and sore, and then the veils, and he goes, "Oh shit, this is the Aiel." So a woman says to him, "You dance well for one caught by surprise. Perhaps another day I will have time to dance with you properly." And Matt is like, "Oh, okay." He's in this compromised position. This woman is making this comment, and he starts smiling. But then he remembers that sometimes the Aiel have a funny idea of what dance means, and he stops smiling. So the Aiel ask Matt what he's doing there. This is from an older male voice, who we know now is Ruach, because they had been watching him case the stone, right? So Matt's been skulking around the roof thinking, okay, cool, he's checking this thing out in the shadows, but the Aiel have been watching him watch the stone. So they ask him what he's doing. And out steps Julian Sandar saying to the Aiel, "I could ask you the same thing." And Julian is sort of standing there all casual, like you said last time, Joe, very Matt-like, also just turning on the charm, also with the staff, also skulking around the roof. But Ruach responds, and he says that he stalks really well for a city man. But why do you follow us? We have stolen nothing. And why have you looked so often at the stone yourself this night? So the Aiel have been watching him too. They're onto both. He's not stalking anyone. Like, okay, I'll give you a compliment. You stalk well, but not so well that we didn't see you. Take the compliment and maybe just go.
There's a comment there that when he steps out of the shadows, the only person surprised is Matt. The rest of them are like, yeah, we know you're there, buddy.
Yeah, okay, fine. Are you joining the conversation? No, step closer. Come on. So more Aiel step out of the shadows, and Julian must immediately admit that he's also outnumbered and at their mercy, which he does quite promptly. So in that moment, Julian just explains that he did something that day and it troubles him. Part of him feels that it was right and that he must obey, hinting at that compulsion, but he has a small voice inside that tells him it was wrong and it won't be quiet, and he can't shake this thing. And even that, and the fact that Julian is a thief catcher, seems enough for Ruach, who actually introduces himself at that point, and he gives him his name and everything, and he says that his old warrior society, the Red Shields, often performed the same function as what a thief catcher does, so he can actually relate to him, and he knows what type of man Julian must be to be a thief catcher. So, the Aiel immediately showing off again their honor system and how they are just leagues ahead of the rest of the world in terms of trust and honor and that sort of thing. So he says to Julian that he'll let him go. He'll let him live and go if he doesn't sound the alarm. But if he does sound the alarm, they'll kill him. So Julian agrees. Oh, when Ruach says that they are there for the stone, they're not there for anything else, and Julian's like, okay, fine, I won't raise the alarm. So Ruach turns his attention to Matt, who he also queries, then, what are you doing here? And Matt explains that he's there to free his friends, and he even tries to recruit the Aiel to help him. But Ruach just declines and he says that they've got bigger fish to fry. They're here for the stone. At that point, Gaul pipes up. Yeah, Gaul there as
Gauls
well.
in the house.
Yeah, and he says to Ruach, it's time to go. And Ruach says, yes, Gaul, you're all right. And the Aiel basically melt into the night. Like Julian and Matt are both like, where the fuck did they go? Like
Batman.
right here and then gone. So Julian asks Matt if the friends that he means to free are 3 women. And Matt is sort of surprised by this, but he confirms, and Julian offers a way in via a gate through which thief catchers often bring prisoners. Basically, I don't know if he says it outright or alludes to the fact that he could take Matt as if Matt is a prisoner, and they would let him in the gate that way. And Matt's kind of mulling it over. He doesn't know this person from a bar of soap. Like, he doesn't know whether he can just sort of like, he'd have to obviously give over his weapons and stuff. He's not going to walk him in the gate with his weapons, so he would have to trust him quite a lot. And while he's mulling it over, he notices the Aiel running along the city wall, that 1 meter wide wall running up to the side of the stone, and then climbing it. And he sees over 100 of them. So, they encountered a handful on the roof there, and Julian probably thought there was like 30 or something of them, but there's been 100 Aiel running through the city that hardly anyone has seen. Lan has seen 3. And Julian has seen some shadows, that's it. But there's 100 of them, more than. So anyway, Matt reckons that that many Aiel would draw way too much attention. So he thinks, okay, cool. I'll go with Julian's plan because these Aiel, there's 100 of them. They're going to draw a lot of attention. I don't want to be where that action is. I'll go with Julian the other way. But before he does that, Matt says, okay, look, before we go to that gate, you just wait here. I'm just going to go create another bit of a diversion. So Matt makes his way along the top of the city wall to the stone, where he does find an arrow slit. And as he correctly guessed, he would not be able to fit through there. But he takes the firework bundle and he just jams it in there as far as he can. He gets the coal out and the whole box and its Y handle is super hot now already. And he gets the coal going. He lights the fuse and he turns around and he runs back along the wall. Now, not as cautious as he was going along it because now he has to get away from it. And the explosion that erupts from this thing, like, knocks the wind out of him before he even falls down. Like, just the concussion of the blast knocks his wind out and he falls down flat on this 1 meter wide wall, 40 meters up from the ground, barely hanging onto his staff. And his ears are ringing, and like, he gets up and he looks back and there's just like smoke everywhere, and he thinks that the arrow slit looks like maybe it's bigger now. So he thinks, okay, cool. Well, now I've potentially got a way in here. Do I go to Julian, who I don't know from a bar of soap, and potentially put myself in a compromised position by giving over my weapons and stuff and trusting him to walk me into the stone? Or do I go see what size this arrow slit is now? Maybe I could get in through there. So he goes for the latter and he says, I'll trust myself rather than Julian. Runs up to the thing, and true as Bob, he can get in. So he climbs through the now blasted arrow slit into the Stone of Tyr proper. And he's only run like a dozen steps when a bunch of defenders come rushing toward the commotion, and he just starts laying into them with his staff, right? Like, he's got his goal that he needs to reach, and he's fighting them. And as he's fighting them, Julian joins him. Julian had also come along the wall, climbed in. Julian is also dead set in getting in here, against all his better judgment as well. Like, you hear him make a couple comments along the way, like, I can't believe I fought defenders now, and this is a high lord. He's really conflicted about it, but he's doing it anyway because he feels that strongly about what he did. So anyway, Julian is there helping Matt, and they're both like, with their 2 quarterstaffs, they are just wrecking shop. I think they use it like a bowling pin analogy, they just roll over them. So Julian asks him, what did you do there? Was that lightning? Did you use magic? And then suddenly Julian's like, did I throw my lot in with a man that can channel? And Matt's just like, no, don't worry, it was just fireworks. And Julian doesn't really know what to do with it, but okay. And then they race off to the cells with Matt thinking, I'm coming. I'll get you out or die. I promise it. In a moment of honesty to himself, he's like, I'm committed to the death. I will save these girls, which is just another point in Matt's column for me. Then we cut to Rand.
Hey, Rand's back.
Rand's back, baby. But his mind is a little frayed, I feel.
Yes.
So Rand, obviously, he climbed all the way to the top and then made his way down into the stone, because he refers to the blast and the commotion that he heard coming from way below. So he's entered the stone. His old wound is burning and aching, but he ignores the pain, and he actually has a crooked smile on his face, a smile of anticipation, as Calandor was near. So he's going to finish this one way or another. Like, he mentions all the dreams he's had, all the hunt, like all the stuff that's sort of been like plaguing him. He's had this single focus for the duration of this book. We haven't been checking in with Rand a lot, but it's been his single focus the whole time. So he's smiling with anticipation that he's going to get there, despite being run ragged, probably not had much sleep. He's in a city with the Forsaken, like it's been hectic. So as he's running through the dark corridors of the stone, he's laughing. Like he's a madman running, laughing down these dark corridors like, yay, I'm going to go get this magic sword that can potentially destroy everything and everyone around me. Another jump cut to Egwene waking up. She's waking up in a cell, and she can feel her face and her body is just completely busted up. She's got a bitter taste in her mouth. And as she sort of starts remembering what happens, she actually starts screaming. I will not be collared. I will not be, like, she is still in that reality. But Nynaeve and Elaine are right there at her side in an instant. And even as she sort of like struggles to sit up and she's all busted up, she's asking if they're still shielded. But then notices that, the other women still have their bruises, and that Nynaeve obviously would have healed Elaine by now if they were not shielded. Nynaeve says that she's tried to break the shield, to no avail. They just can't get through it. They just can't get past that. What is that feeling they said last time, like running up against a wall of glass?
Yeah.
Nynaeve then says, for as important or a bigger deal as they made about catching them, they've just been left alone. It's been hours and no one has been there to see them. And Elaine figures, look, Leandrin said it. We are just bait. No one's coming. We're not important enough. They're not coming here to talk to us. We are just bait. And then Nynaeve ponders why or who they could be bait for. And that's when Egwene puts two and two together and brings up her dreams. And she says that she thinks they are bait for Rand, because in her dreams, that's sort of the picture that was painted for her. She mentions that she also saw Matt in her dreams and Perrin, who appeared as a wolf. This is not news to any of us.
No.
Egwene then tries to give them some hope, but Nynaeve is worried about the 13 Madral. And when she mentions that, Egwene is also like, oh shit, she has like a big reaction to it. She clenches her fists at the mention of the Madral, and when she's clenching her fist, she realizes that the one fist is clenched around her dream ter'angreal, which no one bothered to check her for. No one knew that she had a ter'angreal, which to me was interesting, because the Black Argent knew that she was in the world of dreams, coming to the stone, to the heart of the stone.
Mm-hmm.
So did they maybe just know from Tower days that people thought she was a dreamer, that she was finding her way into Tel'aran'rhiod by herself? Because the only other obvious way to get there on a regular basis without dreaming yourself in there by mistake would be with a ter'angreal. But they never searched her, never took anything off.
I don't think that they are even aware, that ter'angreal exists. That's why Perrin gave it to
no one
her,
does,
because it's completely, it's off the books. It's like that gun that's numbers is filed off and out of the system.
Maybe they took all the dream ter'angreal,
Yeah.
or all the known or recorded dream ter'angreal from the tower. They targeted those.
Perrin had secreted away.
Korean had secreted away.
No.
Perrin put one and one together. Yeah, Perrin was like, they took everything related to Narayan, whatever. And this is the only one that's in relation to the world of dreams that they didn't know about. So this is the best weapon or tool for them to have to help them in this quest.
Yeah.
There's in my chapter, Amiko actually even says like, oh my God, how did you get your, oh, you must have a ter'angreal. It's like a whole little thing where she realizes, oh shit, you've got one. So they had no idea.
I was just surprised that they didn't search them.
Well, that's just their hubris.
Yes, true. So Egwene says, or decides that she's going to try do something in Tel'aran'rhiod, right? Like they can't do anything in the cell. They're well and truly locked in here. They're shielded from the power. So she's going to try something in Tel'aran'rhiod, because she knows that she can channel in there. and that it is different from channeling in the real world or separate from it. Like what we discussed many times when we were talking about the glow, like do you glow in your bed if you're channeling in the dream world?
Clever girl.
So, so Nynaeve says to her, "What if the Black Sisters are there again?" To which Egwene responds, "I hope they are. I hope they are." She responds grimly. Yeah, like and we've seen her like in her accepted tests and stuff. Like when she gets mad, like spinning vortex of air and stone and fire. Like when she gets mad and she knows battle weaves and stuff. She's not, and she has said outright she is not afraid of using the power as a weapon.
Yeah.
Don't put her in chains. It just doesn't do well. No.
It's not going to end well for you.
No. So because of Egwene's weariness and Nynaeve's humming of that song from her youth, she is able to go off to sleep, and she arrives in Tel'aran'rhiod in that same field with the flowers and the butterflies, and then she immediately tries for the source and is filled with Sidar. So she uses her navigation skills in Tel'aran'rhiod and goes straight to the heart of the stone, and there she finds Joya Bayer, something like that, staring at Calandor. But she then quickly spins around, shocked to find Egwene there. But Egwene recalls the weave that was used against her and cuts Joya off from the source. So Egwene has already learnt this weave. This is something she knows.
She just needs to see something once, that's all.
It's amazing. It's a talent. She then makes a second weave of air to trap Joya. So now, because Joya was sort of translucent, and she figures, okay, cool, she's going to trap her with air, and what she sort of deduces from this is that trapping her there with air keeps her there. She can't now exit Tel'aran'rhiod, so she's not going to wake up and get out of this shielding that Egwene has placed on. So she is well and truly trapped. And Joya starts sweating, that's a lot for an Aes Sedai. This is where she realizes that Egwene has a Terran. She says it here. But that doesn't stop Joya from then just starting to make a bunch of threats about, like, you better not do anything here, that's going to make me take it out on you when I wake up. And, when I do, you're going to be sorry. And Egwene just smiles and she asks, "Are you certain you will wake, Dark Friend?"
Yeah.
And that's like, shit. And the text is now sweat is rolling down her face. Like she knows the jig is up. So Egwene then channels something that like strikes a blow across her hips or something like that. Is it a binding? Was it a strike?
I think it's a strike that she learned from Joya that was beating her when she was in Mother G's house.
She says that she'll use like a lesser version of it. She won't stoop to their levels, but she does inflict some kind of attack on her, which is now weave number 3, right? Like she's shielded her, she's trapped her, and she's striking her. Egwene already like multiple weaves, no problem. And Egwene says to Joya, "This is just something that you will feel when you wake up." She wants her to know that, like what happens in here happens in real life, right? So you're going to feel this one when you wake up, if I allow you to wake. She then ties off the flows that are shielding and binding Joya before she even knows what she's doing. And then she pauses to take a look at what she's done. So she's done this like tying off of the weave instinctively, and it's like, oh, well, what did I just do? Looks at it. Now she's learned it, and she can recreate it and probably teach, like Elaine and I need to do the same thing. So she's leveling up quickly as she's like done 3 weaves at the same time. She's learned how to shield people. She's also learned how to tie off a weave and leave it in place, which seems like something that the Black Archer sisters don't know, because they've got Emiko sitting outside the door, keeping the shield active. Where Egwene's like, "Oh no, wait, I'll just tie this off." Okay. Idiots. Noobs. So she leaves Joya bound and shielded, and then goes looking for the cells. Jump cut to Perrin. Should I say young bull?
Before you jump cut,
okay,
there's that part there where she's doing those 3 weaves at once, and she was going to tie all 3 off. She was going to leave her getting beaten. But she says, "I'm not as terrible as you are." So she drops the 3rd tie off. Like, okay, I'm just going to hit you once, and I'm going to tie off the other weaves, and I've got other shit to do. Goodbye. But like this close to just leaving her being beaten.
I'll only beat you a little bit.
Yeah.
So now the jump cut to Perrin or Young Bull. And as we join him, this is quite hectic. Like he's busy crushing a defender of the stone's throat in his jaws. Right. So he justifies this by saying like these guys have been set to guard him or to stop him from entering this door that they are standing in front of, right? So he and Hopper have made their way to this door, this tall door, and there are these guards in front of it, and they can hear shouting in the background and stuff. But he's killed these guards. And then when he looks down, he's a man again. He's wearing his leather vest from the smithy, and in his hand or at his hip, he's got the hammer, not the axe. So he's in the stone. This door with the defender in front of it is in the stone. And this door's got a big lock on it. Hopper urges him to hurry up because something evil is nearby. I'm guessing Ishamael, Belal, any number of the evil shit that's crawling the stone at the moment.
13 Black Aja. There's a lot of evil shit around.
Couple Madral on the way.
Yep.
So Perrin just smashes the lock with one strike, and then he kicks the door open. And Fail is in there on a stone slab. So the room is completely bare. There's a stone slab in the middle of the room on which Fail is lying down. And as Perrin comes up to her, she is covered by so many chains, like held down by so many chains, that he doesn't even notice that she is nude underneath. Like that's how many chains are covering up. And all the chains are like sunk into the stone with massive pegs. He touches her face, and she opens her eyes, and she smiles at him, saying that she had dreamt he would come to save her. Quite a sweet and tender moment. And he says, I'll have you free in a moment, Fail, calling her Fail. And he smashes a bolt like it's nothing, like I think it's like it's wood. And she says, I was sure of it, Perrin, which I think is also the first time she calls him Perrin and not blacksmith or, big arms or curly chest or whatever.
Beefy boy.
Beefy boy. But just then, like as Perrin like sets to these chains, she starts to fade, and Hopper tells him that she fades and she actually disappears. And Hopper tells him that the wolf dream is different or a hunt in the wolf dream is different and can have many different endings. And in frustration, Perrin smashes at the chains lying on the stone slab, and his strike cracks the stone in half. And like the whole chamber rings like a struck bell. And Perrin just says, then I will hunt again. He growls as he strides out of the room with Hopper at his side. Like, okay, there's nothing is going to stop Perrin. He is, again, dead set on his goal. Jump cut. Back to Matt. Alarms are being sounded everywhere and fighting can be heard all around. Matt reckons it's probably the Aiel fighting the defenders. And Matt's busy facing a swordsman of some skill. This guy's dressed like a high lord who seems to have been roused from his sleep. And while Matt's fighting him, he notices that this guy is like, he's dodging Matt's attacks really well. This is Matt who bested Galad and Gawain at the same time. And Galad is no joke. And Gawain killed Master Hammer, right? So like this guy is holding his own. So Matt is a little bit taken aback at how good this guy is with the sword. So he asks Julian if he can get past the guy, but Julian doesn't think so because, you'll just get him, So he's just standing back. He's like, you deal with this guy. I can't get past him. So Matt says to him, well, think of something because this ragamuffin is getting on my nerves.
I love that.
And this rankles this High Lord, right? And he goes, you'll be honored to die on the blade of High Lord Darlan, peasant, if I allow it so. Instead, I'll have you hung by your heels and flayed, basically. And Matt interrupts him and he goes, I don't think I like that. This just pisses him off even more. But I had a thought when I read that name, like, I know that name from somewhere. Did you guys recognize Darlan? Yeah.
No.
I went and I looked him up. After this attack, because Matt knocks him unconscious in this fight, and we'll get to that in a second, but he runs away. He's not seen again. He is a High Lord, Darlan Cisnera or something like that. And later he joins a rebellion against Rand. But at some point he meets Rand, and Rand actually turns him to his side and makes him the steward of Tyr. He later becomes the king of Tyr. This guy that Matt's fighting in the corridor leads the army of Tyr in Tarman Gaidon against the Dark Forces.
Oh, shit.
And eventually attends Rand's funeral.
Wow.
Yeah, like he's Yeah, I know, right? That's not what I expected either. Like, because he comes across here as obviously like an antagonist, like he's
Yeah.
opposing our boy Matt. But yeah, he's got a long part to play yet, and he features heavily in like all the like the politics heavy chapters in our not too distant future. But yeah, it becomes the king of Tyr. So Matt then decides, like, if Julian can't do anything, I have to think of something. So Matt pushes the attack again, and Darlin is doing his thing and he's sort of countering really well, but Matt goes for like a sweeping attack to the head and then mid-swing adjusts and goes low and knocks his feet out from under him and finally manages to get through his defenses. And as he knocks his feet out with the other end of the quarterstaff, he comes around and cracks him in the head and knocks him unconscious.
The only thing I got from Darlin's name was that there was a lot of growling in these chapters and snarling as well. And I just thought, like, and then Darlin snarled, and I was like, snarlin' Darlin. And I thought that was funny.
Snarlin' Darlin met an untimely end.
Yeah.
So Matt and Julian are sort of standing over like unconscious Darlin when that's when Julian says, he doesn't look so high to me now. Like, Julian very much like confronted by his socioeconomic standing and like fighting against the High Lords and like suddenly realizing they're no different from us, no matter how much they try to propagate that myth. But as Julian's sort of musing, Matt sees someone run across the corridor in front of him. He's like, if I didn't know any better, I would say that's Rand.
Yeah.
Which we know, probably laughing. Like, I just imagine Matt standing there and seeing someone go, like Doppler effect, laughing across the front of the...
That's more of a cackle. That's a crazy laugh.
So Matt's about to compliment Julian on his fighting skills, and he sort of swings his quarterstaff up and over his shoulder as he feels it make contact with something. And as he turns around, there's another High Lord behind him that's sort of like bent down on his, like buckled down to his knees. He's dropped his sword and he's holding his head when Matt's quarterstaff had just made contact. So Matt quickly just also jabs him with the quarterstaff in the solar plexus or something and knocks him out. And he goes, Jesus Christ, okay. There we go. Can never bet against luck,
No.
And he and Julian basically just run off then, and Julian's like, are you coming? Like, no amount of luck's going to save you. Are you coming? We need to go find these cells. Let's go. And what was noteworthy, like one of the last lines of the chapter, is Matt follows Julian and he's sort of grumbling, yeah, fine, lead the way. I'm no bloody hero, which is a line I think we hear Matt say quite a lot through the series. I'm no bloody hero.
While he's busy being heroes.
Yes, like running to his almost certain death to save his friends. And that finally is the end of that epic chapter.
Lots of shit going down in the stone.
Yeah, shit's going down, hey? It's so great. Anything else stand out to you guys there?
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. But I mean, it's all action stuff, not sort of thinky stuff.
No. I mean, apart from that sort
fighty.
of Lord Darlin sidetrack, it's all straightforward. Action.
That's awesome, though. Love it. But
It's
Matt
amazing.
was in a little scuffle with the Aiel on the roof.
He was, yeah.
They knocked him off his feet. He nearly slipped off the roof. Tiles went flying.
He knocked one of them down.
Which turned out to be Bane or Chide.
Bane or Chiad or something. And then the person that steps on his wrist, I think, is Avienda.
So
she's the one that says, you dance well for someone who was surprised. Maybe I'll dance with you properly some other time. Huh? Oh, wait.
That reminds me, because then he thinks to himself, like, oh, I'll dance with her. But wait, if I remember correctly, the Aiel say things and they mean other things. They're not specifically about dancing. Now, is this because he met some Aiel previously, or these his old memories? Knowing this much about Aiel.
Bit of column A, bit of column B. He met Urian. Oh, Urian made some allusions to dancing. He said
he
to the
doesn't say
Shinarans,
they don't
when
mean
they charge
dancing, they mean something else. He said they say some things and mean other things in general. Like
Matt says in this chapter that the Aiel often mean something else when they say dance.
Let's throw a bone at Urian with that one. or Uno.
You want to quickly check?
I'm checking.
So here it is. He started to smile. If she wants to dance, they can't be going to kill me at least. Then frowned instead. He seemed to remember Aiel sometimes meant something different when they said that.
When they said that. Okay.
Urian said, I didn't bring my own piper or something like that, but if you want to dance, we can. Something to the Shinarans, when they mock
Yeah.
charge him, and Urian's standing there by himself. He challenges them to a fight, basically. It's like, oh, you want to dance? I'm more than willing to dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Matt has heard the Aiel say dance.
All right. 'Tis true.
Right. Should we roll on?
Let's do this.
Jody, are you ready?
No, but let's do it anyway.
Well, you're much like Rand, also
Yes.
not ready.
Okay.
Chapter 55. What's written in prophecy?
Rand is in the stone, and here he comes into the heart of the stone, finally, stepping through the red stone columns, and he sees Kalandor hanging there in the air in front of him, within reach, flashing, calling to him. And from behind him, he hears Belal say, "Take it, Luz Theron. Take it, Kinslayer." And Rand's like, "Who the fuck are you?" Literally has no idea who this guy is. But even he does recognize him, though, from the dreams. And he's like, you're the guy in my dreams who's been caging my friends. Where are they? And he's like, don't worry about them. He has a dismissive gesture, like, they are nothing. He gives them the whole, like, bad guy, forsaken speech. They are nothing. I will destroy them. They will serve me, blah, 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 blah. All of that. And then when he demands to know who he is, he says, "You may call me Belal," like it's a revelation. Rand just stares at him blankly, which pisses Belal off even more. He's like, that name means nothing to me,
The ego of these guys, eh?
Yeah, it's like... So Belal is taunting him to take the sword, because we know now that Belal's plan is get someone else to take the sword and then kill them, and or Kalandor. Let's separate the swords here by names. And Belal tells him that, look, you take the sword and perhaps I'll let you live. Perhaps it will, save you from me. And Rand just laughs at him in his face, just saying, look, I mean, I've fought the Dark One himself. You think you are going to scare me? You are nothing. Why should I worry about you? And Belal's
cringe
like,
for Rand every time he throws that line out there.
Yeah. And Belal looks at him and is like, are you serious? That's what you think, really? You know nothing. Just like Jon Snow, if he were here. Two of you know nothing. So Belal summons his sword of black flame. Now, is Belal channeling the true power here? Because Rand doesn't feel him channel. He doesn't say anything about it. There's no black tendrils connecting to him or anything.
I don't think so. I think he's just like, he's got a flair for the dramatic.
Yeah, so he's just channeling, normal old channeling. So he also has to be touching the taint.
When Ishamal starts channeling the true power, there is mention of like...
You notice, yes. Yeah. It's noticeable. All right, so it's just regular old one power. All right. His plan is to force Rand in a sword fight to grab Kalandor and defend himself. But instead, Rand relies on his old trusty red-flamed sword made from the one power. So he summons his sword, and they have a little dance, so to speak, going through the forms that Lan taught him. But Rand quickly realizes that Belal is a far better swordsman than he is, and far better than anyone he's ever faced. High Lord Turak, as we mentioned in the past, was no true blade master in comparison to Belal. All right.
Yeah, Rand uses the words here. Oh, now I'm facing a true blade master.
Exactly. You notice, and he is on the defense, running back, and Belal actually stops in one of the breaks that they have, and is like, "Wow, you used to be so much better at this, Luz Theron." And he makes mention over here as well that how they adapted the game of swords, the sport of swords, back in the Age of Legends. So it was Belal and Luz Theron who changed this benign sport of swords into an art form for murder and for killing and for war. So that's where it came from. And there's even a mention as well, like the old texts told us that people did. So they were reading texts from before the Age of the Legends where people
Mhm.
were using swords. Who knows? They were even reading about themselves in this age, if it's all a
Yeah.
circle, or about us or our past. But I thought that was very, very cool that he is referring back to 3,000 years ago and then talking about a book which was referring back to even before that
Yeah.
about sword fighting, which is very cool.
Yeah.
So he tells Rand again, take Kalandor, and Rand is still not 100% convinced that he is actually the Dragon Reborn. And he thinks, like, if I go for Kalandor and I can't touch it, he's going to stab me in the back because I'm going to have to turn around to do this. So, it might not even work. So he just prefers to rely on his old trusty flaming sword. So at this point as well, while they're having their whole duel in the heart of the stone, fighting has broken out around them. So the Aiel are now in the heart of the stone as well, and they are fighting the defenders. I say fighting, it's more of a slaughter, really. It's just tin hat people falling down with arrows in their faces and necks all over the place. So, and at this point as well, that we find out later, Lan is also in this room, and I'm wondering, because we never hear about it, who he was fighting. Was he killing Aiel and defenders at the same time? Just whoever got in his way? Because during the taunt that Belal is giving him to take the sword, Moiraine appears out of nowhere and screams, no, and promptly balefires Belal out of the pattern, the end. It's very unceremonious. I actually had to put down my book and go and Google some information about Belal. And yeah, I thought, like, maybe I just don't remember, but no, this is it. That's it. He's gone. Never to be seen again.
So, just one sec back.
Yes.
Do they mention something specifically about Lan? Because I read this and I was like, where's Lan?
He must be fighting. He must have cut a path for Moiraine to get into the heart of the stone. Like, they've come through the fighting people. I'm surely Lan is going to,
because he's not mentioned.
No.
Right?
That's what I was wondering. Like,
I had that thought as well. Like, Moiraine she just walks in and says no. Belal then does talk to her.
Yes.
He says, I thought you were dealt with, woman.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
The confirmation that he did feel the trap springing.
Yes.
So he thought, okay, she's dealt with.
Have you guys watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly?
Yes.
Geez, years ago.
There's a scene with the Ugly, Tuco Benedicto Pacifico Juan Maria Ramirez, where he's
I just know him as
Tuco.
Did you go and memorize that now?
No, I've seen that movie a lot. My dad's a big fan. There's a scene in which he comes across this town that's been completely decimated by the Civil War, and he finds it's just been evacuated, and he finds a bath that's still got like lukewarm water in it. And Tuco is sort of off by himself, and he sits in the bath. He throws all like the bath salts and soaps and stuff that he finds around in there, sitting in there. So he's sitting in the bath. He's obviously fully in the nude, like just in this like copper tub, when a one-armed cowboy comes in there and he's like, finally I've tracked you down, Tuco. You had shot me, because the movie, it's one of the characters from the opening scene of the movie that Tuco does shoot at the time. And he's talking about how he's finally going to get his revenge, and then these gunshots fire from within the bath. Tuco shoots him dead, and he's got his gun with him in the water, and he sort of stands up and he looks over like the little door thing that's in front of him. He looks at the dead body and he just looks at him and he goes, if you're going to shoot, don't talk.
Yes.
And he sits down again and finishes his bath. That's this. Belal,
exactly this.
Just do something instead of like talking to Moiraine, to give her a chance, because then she also only then lifts her hands and then channels. He sees the weave forming and has enough time to say no before she balefires him out of existence, and he flickers and disappears. Idiot.
This is not only Belal's fault, this is also Moraine's fault. Why did she scream no? Why not just balefire him in the back? Why attract his attention and have a chat?
I mean, maybe she thought he was about to kill Rand or something. I don't know. But yeah, the whole thing was a bit comical. It just took me immediately back to Tuco. Like, why all this talking? Just fucking do something.
This comes up again seconds later. So let's get back to it.
Yes.
Literally.
If you're going to balefire. Don't talk.
Yes. So, yeah. Goodbye, Bilal. That's the end of him. He was built up to be this main antagonist of the book. He has like 10 lines of dialogue, and then he is erased from the pattern forever. The end.
Yeah.
She also then tries to convince Rand to take Kalandor, but mid-speech, she's lightninged by Ishamael, and she gets thrown across the room, and she's out for the rest of the chapter. And he likes to also make a very grand entrance, and he is inside some giant black cloud hovering in the domes of the roof area, and starts coalescing and forming into a human being as he lands on the ground.
Not on the ground. He's
Hovering.
levitating.
Well, whatever.
He's two spans above the ground. I only bring that up because you can't levitate with the one power, but you can with the true power.
Oh, right. Huh. I missed that.
At the Dark Friend Social, he's also hovering above the Madrol when he delivers the speech to all those people. And here again, he's not on the ground. Sorry to be so pedantic, so unlike me.
Unlike you.
It's because he's channeling the true power.
Yes, I was just trying to skip ahead to the second instance of if you're going to shoot. Because in typical Forsaken fashion, he starts talking again instead of just killing Rand. For example, when his back was turned and he was talking to Moiraine and you shot that black lightning at Moiraine, why not shoot Rand as well? A killing blow.
First.
The problem that you're having is Rand. Once he's dead, what the fuck is Moiraine going to do? Listen, guys, please, just...
No, he wants to rub it in. Remember, okay, look, yes. I'll give Robert Jordan a bit of leeway here. Yeah. Elan Morin has this like personal vendetta against Lews Therin, right? Like he wants to make sure he rubs it in as much as he can before he kills him. So I'll cut him a little bit of slack, but not much.
And he is frothing at the mouth here. He's also far crazier than we've ever seen him up until this point. Mad as a hatter. So he gives him some speech about I will destroy you and blah 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 blah, the usual bad guy speech. And just at that moment casts some weave or something, what appears to be, for me at least, or as the casual reader, trying to rip Rand's soul out of his body as a way of killing him. Yeah, that's what I get. And in this moment, Rand dives for Kalandor because, options are now limited. It's this or nothing. And during the whole soul-ripping experience, he clasps the hilt of Kalandor, at which point the soul-ripping stops, and a giant beam of light illuminates the room, and more power than you can possibly imagine starts flowing through him. And it's a great, fantastical cinematic scene that I would love to see on screen someday. And the power falls through him, and now we have some even footing to have an epic battle. So yeah, it works. Guess what? Rand's the Dragon Reborn. He can't touch Kalandor. Hey. You've been worrying for nothing, bro. So this also reminded me of a scene in The Matrix when Neo kills Agent Smith in the first movie, and the other agents look at each other and just run away. Awesome power. Yes. I'm out of here. And that's exactly what Ishamael does. He sees Rand withholding Kalandor and he flees. So what he does is he warps reality, and this is what I understand, he enters Teleanriod in the flesh.
That's what I understood as well.
That's what I understood. All right. On the same page. Rand, holding Kalandor, sees what he did. In typical Egwene fashion, sees him something once. He can also do it now, does the same thing, and follows him through a gateway, a doorway that he created into Teleanriod, and chases after him.
On that note, sorry to interject again. There's no description of a doorway.
There's no description of a doorway, but he describes it as a gateway, as an entrance, as a doorway. I can't remember the exact words, but...
I was wondering if Ishamael was using the true power and traveling with the true power, like he does in Dragonmount, the prologue of Book 1. He just sort of appears. There is no gateway when you do it that way. And I wondered if Rand holding Kalandor, which we know is a Sa'angreal for the true power, if Rand copies what Ishamael does. Because they go through, Robert Jordan goes through painstaking effort to describe a sinewy line that looks like it turns from one side to the next. And this would be the first time we would see it, right? So why would he not describe it? There's no mention of a gateway at all. Rand just copies what a Shamal does, who we know is by instinct channeling the true power. Everything he's doing here is with the true power. And Rand follows him, doing the same thing that a Shamal did. It's never confirmed. I don't know. But I thought it was noteworthy that no gateway was described.
Dude.
Food for thought.
It says here, a twisting as Baalzamon had in some way bent what was. Ignoring the men standing, staring at him, ignoring Moiraine crumpled in the column base, Rand reached out through Callandor and twisted reality to make a door to somewhere else. He did not know where, except that it was where Baalzi had gone. I am the hunter now. He has stepped through. So a door to somewhere.
But he twisted reality. No, I like Moritz's theory there. At this point, a hypothesis.
It's just the way it's described is different.
Yes. It's not the twisting line of light, twisting and
Could
turning.
be
and
just because, Robert Jordan hasn't had to elaborate on it at this point, so, the readers wouldn't be pausing the action to like, ooh, what are the physical dimensions of this gateway that he is, conjuring here? What are the weaves?
I'd like to think of it like Rick and Morty's portal gun, like little spinning vortex of silver light.
That's the sound it made, Willie.
Which is different from how traveling is explained in the books. Anyway, let's not get stuck on that. Fun thought.
I like it. And Willie stole my cool line. I am the hunter now. And he steps in the
I'm
door.
sorry.
That's cool. It's a cool line as long as it gets said. So
I'll
there.
bleep it out in the edit.
No need. So anyway, that's him. He's out of the picture now. They've gone off to have their own little side adventure in Tel Anriod. But in Tel Anriod, meanwhile, back in Tel Anriod, Egwene is also running around, looking for a way to free herself and Elaine and Nynaeve. Because when we left you, Moritz, she had just entered and dealt with what's her face?
Joya.
Joya, that's right. And then run off to go and find her. So now she has done that. And she has gone through, she's found the cells, she's gone through the torture chambers with all the whips and hooks and weird crap hanging on the walls. And she's found the area of the cells. So she's opening up all the doors, channeling earth into the locks and making them turn to dust. She's getting really adept at doing that. Practicing for a certain later time where big chains need to be altered. And she sees from the corner of her eye a flicker of a person next to one of the cells and turns, and there she sees Amiko, who is flickering in and out of Tel Anriod, sitting on a bench outside one of the cells. So she has fallen asleep on the job, or is in the process of falling asleep on the job, playing with a dream to Angriel at the same time, while shielding the three of them in the cell inside, which is just bad news.
Idiotic.
Bad, Black Aja. Bad. You're not doing your job. If only they had learned how to tie off shields, that would have been very handy. But all of these things are very convenient for Egwene, who then sees her flickering in and out and was like, all right, now I know how to shield some people. I know how to tie off weaves. I know how to do all this stuff. So she prepares a weave to shield Amiko, or Amiko, as I like to pronounce it. But, of course, she's flickering in and out, so she's got to wait for her to flicker back in before she can do it. And she figures that, look, she's going to need something stronger and sharper because Amiko is already channeling the power to maintain that shield. So it's not the same to be able to cut her off as to block the flow before it begins, like to dam it. But as soon as she flickers in, Egwene manages to do it. She attacks with that shield and manages to push it in place. Now, I'm wondering if this is only because she's in the dream world, and it wouldn't have worked in the real world, because later on we see that it kind of worked but didn't work. And the physics of all of this is very confusing to me.
I think she's caught half in, half out.
Yeah, because she's not fully in the dream world.
Quite in. So a part of her is caught there. Like, imagine one eye looking up and one eye looking left, going like, help me, help me.
I think she's shielded her in Tel Anriod, but not in the real world.
But tied her up in both?
Yes, and wrapped her up in flows of air.
But the flows of air have taken effect in the real world.
Exactly.
But physical things do. So like a cut in Tel Anriod manifests in the real world, but channeling in Tel'aran'rhiod and the real world are separate. Because there's no glow in the real world.
Yeah,
as
but I
we've
mean, she's tied her
established.
up with flows of air. That is channeling.
But the flows of air are affecting her physical body,
All right. Ooh.
right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
if she had taken a knife and stabbed Amiko in the world of dreams, or cut off a finger, let's use a physical thing. Like if she cut off a finger in the world of dreams, in the real world, her finger would come off. Because physical things translate. But you can channel two different things in the real world and in Tel'aran'rhiod at the same time.
All right.
While you're asleep, you can only maintain flows of spirit, which is what the shield is made of.
Yeah. All right.
So Amiko can maintain that flow even while asleep.
Okay.
But so Egwene is shielded in the real world, but not in Tel'aran'rhiod.
Yes.
So the inverse must be able to be true.
Must be.
Well, Egwene can't channel in the real world, can channel in Tel'aran'rhiod.
Yep.
Now Amiko can't channel in Tel'aran'rhiod, but is maintaining a flow in the real world.
Yes.
The two
All
sides
right.
of the same coin.
All right. Well, I'm glad I paused to ask. That makes perfect sense.
I'm glad I just bullshitted my way through that argument.
like Willie said in the last one, just say it with confidence and authority, and people will believe you.
Yes. I think I've just explained it to myself.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what this is for. Just say stuff, and then hopefully it makes sense. In this case,
also,
it
our
does.
listeners will keep us honest.
So yeah. Anyway, with Amiko shielded and held in place, Egwene opens the cell door and finds nothing. Didn't work. What a noob. Of course they're not going to be there. They're actually there in the real world. So she's like, okay. So to do this, she then wakes herself up. Now she's getting really good in the world of dreams because now she can just wake up at will and go back to her body. And she jumps back into her body, back to all the bruises and the pain and the cotton mouth that she's got. And they all say, like, I don't know what you did, but a moment ago, we heard screaming from outside. And they all confirm that they did feel something change with the shield that's holding them. Well, not holding them, but cutting them off. But they are still cut off. They still can't channel. So Egwene's like, all right, something is wrong. I'm going to go back to the world of dreams and I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to go try again and try something else. So, but at this point, she's also really, really weak. And they are worried about her. Like, maybe if you go back in again and try this, you won't come out or you won't survive it. You are clearly, in a bad way. But she's like insistent. No, we've got to try one more time. And they ask her like, but how are you going to fall asleep so quickly? And she asks Nynaeve to sing her that song that she used to as she was a child to help her put her back to sleep. And I think we have a little resolution here to our little power struggle that we've had in the past between these two, that Egwene is submitting to her and saying, like, sing me the song as if I were a child again, which is exactly what Nynaeve wants to do, is to treat her like a child.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's 100% necessary. And I think there's some resolution there to that whole thing that was happening before. And off she goes back into the world of dreams. So we jump back now, and now we are with Matt, who is also just joining them in the torture chamber with whips and chains hanging around, and making his way to the cells. Now they've found their way, him and Julian, down to the cells. Julian is still with him and trying to look in every direction at once, expecting an attack from all directions. And rightly so, because there have been attacks from all directions and High Lords popping out of nowhere, sneaking up behind them.
Yeah.
So good thing that he's there as well. Matt sees Amiko sitting there, frozen stiff on the chair, and his first thought is, she's pretty. In another world, I'd go in and give her a kiss or something and have a dance, blah, blah, blah. Keep it in your pants, Matt. Stay focused. And as he's approaching her, Julian screams out like for him to stop, and he goes, that is one of those women that came to steal your friends and kidnap them and stuff. So he's like, Matt's like, whoa, immediately stops. But she is just standing there or sitting there, not speaking, stiff from the neck down, and her eyes are just darting around wildly. So he sees that there's fear on her and that something is off, something is not right. But Matt, of course, through his kind of, I think it's a mixture of stupidity, luck, desperation to save his friends. That kind of like tops his fear, and he kind of starts sneaking closer and closer, like edging towards her cautiously, and nothing's happening. So he's like, all right.
I'll
And
keep going.
I'll just keep going. And he sees the keys on her belt. And he's like, I'll just try and take the keys. And he takes the keys off her, and she doesn't move. So he's like, oh, okay. But then he notices like her fear, like sneaking out to her. And he notices her looking at the door behind her, the cell door, fearful, like utter terror in her face. And he thinks, wait a minute, maybe the girls aren't in there. Maybe there's a fade in there. Like, who knows? Like, she's so terrified of what's inside of there. And I opened it up. It could be worse for me. But he's pretty sure, like, it's he's come this far. He's got it. It's got to be the girls. So anyway, takes a gamble, as he's prone to do. Opens up the door, and there they are. Right, not a fade. Luckily, it's his three friends that he's been looking for. Egwene apparently asleep on the floor between Nynaeve and Elaine, and he is shocked at how badly they've been beaten. He makes mention of how swollen Egwene's face is, because we talk about this all the time, and she's in the world of dreams now, where she looks normal, but previously she was beaten half to death. Right, so she
struggled to speak when she woke up. She couldn't even speak properly.
They are fucked up. And they are also immediately ungrateful to Matt. They look at him and go, Matt Cawthorne, what the hell are you doing here? Like, what the fuck?
I remember being so indignant when I was in high school and I read, are you kidding me? Matt's saving your asses.
Yeah, but look, I thought about this and even spoke to Christina about it. Matt only saved him because Egwene had shielded and trapped Amiko outside. If he had come up to her and she was not, if she was had full faculties, he'd be dead. He hasn't got that fox head medallion yet.
She might not be able to do multiple weaves at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
And she has to maintain the weave.
These guys are lame.
There's a reason she's one of the 13 that's chosen to guard them at the door. It's like
let's
she's
stay
not
behind.
at the stay behind.
You stay with the bait.
Yeah,
jump in the water, hold this chum bucket, and then we'll see if sharks come.
Yes. Let us know. Cheers. We're going to go do other things. We'll be in the beach bar if you need us.
Here. Bye.
So, and they are not happy to see Julian either, because he's standing behind Matt. Matt actually turns to see what they're looking at, thinking, oh shit, what now? And he's like, oh, it's just Julian. What's wrong with Julian? But he explains to them, he apologizes and he explains, and he was like, he had to do what she said. And Nynaeve kind of figures that, she remembers that Leandrin has some dirty tricks, and it's probably not all his fault. So upon exiting the cell, Nynaeve immediately just punches Amiko in the face with a mean haymaker and knocks her completely cold. But before this, like, this is mid-sentence as well. Amiko's like starting to plead, tears running from her eyes. I promise I'll turn back to the light. I'm a little... No.
I'll swear the oaths again.
No, I'm not going to believe you. Don't trust her, Nynaeve. Nynaeve doesn't. And punches her in the face and knocks her out. Now that she's out, the shield is lifted and they can channel again. At which point Nynaeve immediately heals Egwene and everyone that needs healing, which is just the three of them, I suppose. I don't think that she doesn't heal herself. She can't channel it to herself, can you?
I don't think she can.
I don't think you can channel to yourself.
No.
Anyway, another callback. Matt is shocked that they would just punch this random woman in her face while she's completely helpless. And Nynaeve abuses her power again, I thought, wraps him up in flows of air and lifts him off the ground and basically gives him a stern talking to, like, you don't understand what's going on, and until you do, shut your mouth. And he's like, what the hell, man? This place is under attack. We need to get the hell out of here. And she's like, all right, you are right. And it grates me to say this, but Matt is right about something. And he's like, yeah, damn right, I'm right. And she puts him down on the ground again, and he's like, all right, let's get out of here. And Nynaeve goes, no, we can't leave right now. We've got to go find Leandrin. We've got some debts to pay, and we are not going with you. And off they go. He's just left standing behind going, Jesus, well, I've come all this way and I've saved them now, got them out of the cell. If I let them die in this battle, that's going to be all for nothing. So, well, I suppose I just better go with them. Julian, you coming with me? And Julian's like, yeah, well, all right. I guess so. Then off we go.
Okay, Taverin.
All right. And off they go. And then we skip to, this is a lot of jumping around again, like your chapter, Moritz. So now we're back with Perrin, who is also in the world of dreams. We're just staying in the world of dreams for now, all right? It's the place to be. All the cool kids are hanging out here. So he has been rescuing Fail now. He's rescued her a couple of times, and the hunt has ended differently again. So he still hasn't got to the real Fail. But he actually saw Rand as well in one of these hallways, running across the hallway, and he said it looks like he was hunting somebody. So yeah, they're kind of like crossing paths with each other. Everyone in the world of dreams. Yeah, and he sees him running there. So that was Rand hunting Ishmael.
Mm.
But just as
because Perrin is still in the inn.
Yeah,
physically,
he's still lying on the floor.
With Loyal and Fail,
yeah, with
his
Loyal
battle
standing
is
guard
in
over.
Tal Alandrioid.
Yeah,
exactly. Getting much better, Willie. And he takes a step and he collapses because now he's too strongly in the world of dreams, according to Senor Hopper. And Hopper's really, he's kind of like, I told you so, young Will. Like you are too strong in here, and you have to get out. And he's like, not until I have saved Fail. Again, calling her by Fail and not Zareen. I was thinking as well, like single-minded, to his death and his detriment, running after to try and save her. Like, you better get used to that, buddy. It's going to be this is going to be your life,
be your theme. This is your thing,
your thing for the next 10 books.
Yeah.
So they eventually come to some massive bronze doors that have no handle, no locks. There doesn't seem to be any way to get into them. But etched into the metal of these bronze doors are thousands and thousands of tiny little falcons, which I'd say is a pretty strong clue that there might be a falcon inside here. Mm-hmm. And thank God that he brought his hammer with him into the world of dreams and not his axe, because this is very, very handy in smashing down giant bronze doors without handles, which he then does. Smashes the door open. I think on the third smash, he manages to get it open. And he is staring at the inside of a room where there is a falcon, a literal actual falcon, chained to a perch in the center of the room with a circle of light shining down on her. This has got to be her. It's got to be her. So as he steps towards her, hundreds of other falcons start swooping at him from the ceilings and start ripping up his face with their talons. He tries to shield them with his face with his arms, and they are attacking relentlessly. But he is single-minded in his pursuit, so he pushes through them towards Fael, taking more and more damage. And by the time he gets up to the perch where he's on his knees, he's soaked in blood, and he sees the chain holding her has a hedgehog lock. And with the last of his effort, he grabs the chain and snaps it with his bare hands.
Yeah.
But this is the dream world, but also, if anyone's going to snap a chain with his bare hands, it's going to be Perrin. And that's with the last of his strength, snaps it and passes out. He opens his eyes. He's back in the inn on the floor. And Fael is kneeling over him. And he is just sliced to shit with 1,000 different cuts and bleeding relentlessly. And she says to him, my poor Perrin, my poor blacksmith. And he calls her Fael, my falcon, which I believe is the first time to her face. That he calls her Fael. And this is something you mentioned, Moritz, the last time. Is like, you were going to keep track as to when he actually calls her Fael for the first time. And I think this is it. I just need to confirm with you.
I think it is.
Yeah, because he's called her Fael to Hopper.
When she's passed out, he says, Fael, if I can just get to you, I swear, I'll always call you Fael from now on. Yeah. But she's asleep, so he doesn't say it to her.
That doesn't count.
No.
So anyway, she calls him Perrin, like earlier. So he's no longer blacksmith or hairy chest or whatever.
He did call her Fael when he found her on the slab with the chains on her.
Yes,
and she calls him Perrin as well.
All right, but that's in the world of dreams. Still doesn't count.
It's true.
True, Dad. So after this very poignant and romantic scene, we are back with Rand. He is still
for another romantic scene. As this relationship runs its course.
Yes. So he has found his way. He's still in the heart of the stone. So he's just walked through that twisted doorway. No, this sounds like a mongrel. That's going to be confusing. Through his twisted reality doorway, and he's come out exactly where he was, spatially. He's still in the heart of the stone, but not surrounded by, like, everyone's gone. All the dead bodies are gone. Moraine's not there. There's no one else there. There's no sounds of fighting and anything. And he's all confused for a second, thinking, where is he? What's going on? And in that moment, Ishi shoots some balefire at him. There's a lot of balefire in these books. Everybody's just like...
This book in particular, yeah.
First attack. It's not like a last resort. It's just first attack, balefire.
Nuclear option every time.
Nuclear option, yeah. But luckily, he has a giant glowing sword in his hand, and he blocks the beam with Calando. And this is such a great scene in my brain as well. He puts up the sword in front of him, and the sword splits the beam of balefire into two, and deflects it past him on either side, so close that he can smell the wool of his coat burning, singeing as the heat goes past him, and it hits the columns behind him, disintegrating them and causing parts of the roof to fall in, or of the stone of Tyr. So there's some crashing around, and there's some destruction going on. And he returns fire immediately through Calando. So it must be one hell of a balefire stream. Because I
get the sense that he does like a slash with the sword, and the sword slash makes like a vertical, like a sheet of balefire that goes flying off.
Yes,
and shears more columns.
I'm wondering what effect they would have had on the pattern had it hit Ishamael and erased him from like 4,000 years of history since before he was even born or something. Could have caused more harm than good. Because that is a thing I'm sure that we are all aware of. Like, it erases you from the past. So the stronger the balefire, the further back in time it erases you. So balefire coming out of Calando with Rand, the Dragon Reborn, wielding it, that is it's probably the strongest beam of balefire ever produced. So anyway, it erases some stone columns. We know it does that. Behind him, there's some more collapsing. But the chase is on. Ishamael flees, and off goes Rand in pursuit. Now, I've got like 5 lines of what happens next, because it is some weird, surreal shit of him running, and then the air suddenly becomes stone, and he's trapped inside it, but he does something he doesn't understand, and he's free, and then the air becomes lava, and all kinds of, they're in the dream world. So reality is all fucked up.
The first one is like all Trollocs and Madrol like piling in, and he turns them to vapor.
Yes. All right. There's even on my reread when I was making the chapter summaries, I just skipped over that completely. So I don't. Okay. All I remember from the first read is, what? Yes.
Everything is fire, and he makes it go away. Everything is water, he makes it go away.
Yeah. So there's no
nothing is stopping
explanation of how he does it. He doesn't know how it's done. It's really, if people want to read it, go read it in the books. I'm not going to go over there. But anyway, they make a big circle. They fight all over the stone, and anyway, they end up back in the heart of the stone, where they have their final showdown. Ishi is backing away at this point, realizing he may have underestimated this farm boy again, and he is on the ropes.
3 strikes and you're out, buddy.
Indeed. And he literally calls on the Dark One himself at this point. He screams, "Aid me!" Like, I cannot be destroyed. I can't. This is not the end. Aid me. And the darkness around him kind of coalesces into some ball of power in front of him. I'm getting like strong Dragon Ball Z kind of Street Fighter vibes.
Spirit bomb.
Spirit bomb. Like the Hadouken kind of Street Fighter attack, and this triumph on his face, because he's realized, I've got something here that Rand does not. But Rand's like, no, no, thanks. And in the middle of that attack, he just cuts the cords that are reaching into him again. There's all these black filaments that are coming from the darkness behind him. In previous incantation, or in previous versions, there was only one, but now it seems like there are multiple threads that are connected to Ishi from behind. And Rand, using Calando, does some flourishing moves and slices them all. I mean, it worked last time. Might as well work this time, and there's no reason to think it wouldn't.
For sure.
And cuts him off from the true power once and for all, sort of. And then drives his sword, Calando, into Ishamael's chest, whose last words then are, "Fool." It's so... The great Lord of the Dark can never be defeated. And I'm thinking at this point, like, this is where he's gone completely mad. He honestly believes he is the great Lord of the Dark. Like, you can't kill me. I am the Dark One himself. Like, he truly believes it. He is mad, even crazier than Rand at this point. And and that's how he dies, with Calandor in the chest. Look, if the flaming heron mark red sword can't do it, fucking Calandor can, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, they come out of this. Obviously, now he's dead. They come back out of of Teleon into the real world, and Rand looks down. At his feet is the body of a handsome man in his middle years, but his eyes and his mouth are burned out completely, and there are tendrils of smoke rising up from them. Rand.
Quick note.
Yes.
They did not step through a doorway to get back into
No, they did
the
not.
heart of the stone in the real world.
So that again would make me think that Rand was feeding off Ishamael's true power through Calandor.
Or something. It's just weird. I don't know what happened
Yeah.
there, but it's weird that they would just like, no casting of a doorway and stepping through it. I mean, Ishamael's dead at this point. He's just a dead body that is now back in the real world. And Rand is also back in the real world without taking a step. He's just standing there.
Yeah.
So somehow they've teleported back into the real world.
You forgot the... Sorry, Jody, were you done?
No, I'm not done. Oh. Hang on a second.
Continue.
Yeah, because it gets good here. Because all that
Bring us
previous
home.
shit wasn't good.
Boring.
Rand thinks, shit, I am the Dragon Reborn. I just killed the Dark One. The last battle is done.
Yes.
That's a wrap, people. Good job. We can all go home now. And he raises Calandor into the sky and shoots out some silver lightning and screams for everyone to stop. And the fighting stops. And he says, I am Rand al'Thor. I am the Dragon Reborn. And with Calandor shining in his hands, everyone kneels before him, and we hear cries of, the king in the... No, wait. The Dragon Reborn. And that is how the chapter ends, Willie.
When he pulls that sword up into the air, or pushes it into the air, and the lightning comes out of him and out of the sword, I can just imagine He-Man. I have the power. He-Man.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Goosebumps. Oh, man.
So finally, admitting to himself and saying it out loud in front of everyone, I am the Dragon Reborn. Because even when Belal was pushing Rand towards Calandor, Rand didn't want to try and grab it because he thinks to himself, if I reach out to grab it, will my hand stop in midair like I've seen happen to others in the world of dreams? Like he is still not convinced at that point. But now, I mean, it's undeniable, right? Again, after his 2 heron mark brands on his palms, like, come on.
And the Dark One himself, who he thinks is the Dark One himself, constantly pursuing him to try and murder him. That's
calling him Lews Theron.
Everyone.
Belal, Lanfear, I mean...
Moiraine making huge efforts. You got Aes Sedai after you. You've met the ambulance seat. Like, dude, how many hints do you need?
What a chapter.
Yeah, man. When I finished my notes on that, I think I still have a bruise on my finger from writing. That was just, wow.
It's a lot.
Yes.
So, Willem, you've been quiet for a while. What are you preparing to bowl us
really
over
looked
with
like
in
he
the
was
back?
preparing notes and reading books.
No, it's just been because I've had to make so much notes about the previous 2 chapters because it's so vast. There's so much
it's
that
a
goes
lot.
down. I'm just going through them and trying to go, okay, cool. Perrin finally found Fiel. Yep. My last note for Rand's battle is pretty simple. Rand is slaying Ishmael. Lightning from Calandor. All hail the dragon.
All hail the Dragon Reborn.
But we do get that as readers, right? Like you do get that sense, like you are buoyed by this, like the scene, and you are like, yes, it is the Dragon Reborn. Here's the Dragon Reborn, and him admitting it to himself is like, you can live yourself into that moment and feel almost like jubilant about it, like you want to celebrate, like, yes, finally, lightning shooting out of the sword in this huge domed room. It's an incredible scene.
Well,
Very
look,
cool.
I mean, just finally actually got to stick it to Ishmael and actually drive that sword into him and kill him now. Not for good. We know he's coming back again, but
Yeah, I was about to say.
It's been 3 of these monster books with these blazing fire eyes and fire mouth, and it's so nice that they show him now in just a human form with a burned out skull. Like, all right, well, there you
Yes.
go. That's what you get
Yeah.
for trying to be Shaitan yourself.
Some closure.
Billy, don't say his name.
Hmm.
Dark friend.
I have no fear of the dark. I'm a white cloak.
No fear of the
I
dark.
walk in the
You walk
light.
in the light.
I just want to read that entire part because there's a part where Rand thinks like, "Oh shit, I'm the dark one. I am the dragon. I'm the dark one. I am the Dragon Reborn." But there's a bunch more to it. But I was, just having a joke with it. But he says, "I have done it." He thought, "I have killed Beelzemon, killed Shaitan. I have won the last battle. Light, I am the Dragon Reborn, the breaker of nations, the breaker of the world. No, I will end the breaking, end the killing. I will make it end." And just wrong about everything except I am the Dragon Reborn.
Yes. Everything from
Bit
then on.
premature, Boo, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
This is book 3, but like you say, I'm just so glad it's over. And this whole I don't know if I'm the Dragon Reborn. Should I? Can I? When I? Now we can get on with shit. Like book 4, I'm the Dragon Reborn. This is what needs to be done. Let's get to work.
Yeah. Did you guys notice the chapter icon?
For this
That
one,
was the dragon, the big dragon.
It's the first time the dragon is used as a chapter icon in the series.
it is indeed.
Yeah. I went back and I looked up all the chapter icons. There's a list of them.
Mm.
And it's the first time the dragon is used. Very fitting in the chapter where Rand proclaims himself, kills Ishamael, and in the book called The Dragon Reborn. So prophecies fulfilled and new chapter icon introduced.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I took the same sort of reaction to Nynaeve. Like, Matt opens the door. Hey, I saved you. And they're like, the fuck you doing here, man?
You've interrupted our
chide him
grand
for-
escape
You have
plan.
no idea how big this is.
And then Matt swears, and that's all they can focus on. And then when
Yes.
Egwene wakes up, he's like, "Oh, Nynaeve, you just explained it. I don't want to be have my language corrected again." And both Belal and Moiraine make mention of the fact that Rand is being pushed into grabbing Kalandor prematurely. Like he doesn't know enough. He's not actually ready yet, but he has to do it. But he does pretty well. I mean, deflecting that
I'd say so.
balefire, which he says it happens instinctually, right? Like this is a sword move that he's used, that he's learned from Lan. Like he just twists his wrists to use the sword to deflect the balefire, which is pretty pro and lucky. Like that's pure land training and instinct, and maybe even some loose Theron memory working in unison to save his bacon.
Some massive amount of Taveran luck. Yeah, he. Unfortunately for me, there's always this, dare I say it, a little bit of an anticlimax to the slaying of any of the Forsaken in the first 3 books. It's kind of like so quick, like boom, done. There's more tension and build up and suspense for me in all of the small little encounters, the running from in the beginning from the Madral, the worms, and when they're in the blight, everything that they face around them, as opposed to when they face off, it's this quick battle. Moiraine steps in and Bale fires and Belal's dead. Done. That's it. Like, it's no, and it's. I mean, what was it now? Let's go through them. Who was the first 2 Forsaken that got slayed? They were so unimportant. I can't remember.
Balthamel's the first one to die.
And then Agony.
Yeah,
Thanks
because
to
he
the
was
Green
too
Man,
busy
but in a
sucking
cool
up.
way.
Yeah, the eye of the world, clean true power is busy.
No, that
sucking up.
was Agenor. Balthamel is the one that is grabbed by the Green
Ent.
Man.
Not the Ent.
The
The
Ent,
Green
yeah.
Man.
Not the Ent, but yes.
Same.
The Ent that's not an Ent. But he grabs him, and then Balthamel's sort of like grabbing onto him and setting him on fire, and he's starting to set fire from the inside. But then the Green Man makes stuff grow out of Balthamel. Like all this
burst,
stuff growing out of his mouth, like deadly nightcap mushrooms and like all stuff that would grow in dank caves and stuff grows out of him.
Yeah,
It's
that's
eventually
right.
just like
That
this
was pretty good.
form of. That is pretty cool. Agenor he burnt himself out. I think we settled on that was what happened with Agenor. Rand has this sort of like battle with Ishamael in whatever that dream shard was or wherever they fought, and he just cut the cord, and it seemed to have an effect on it, and then the room explodes in light or something like that.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think he just fights Ishamal again at the end of the Great Hunt.
Yep.
It's a sword fight. Ishamal's fighting with a staff. Rand does do the whole sheathing the sword, using Heron wading through the rushes as a way to lure Ishamal into a strike, and then accepts the blow and stabs him at the same time. But then that's also preceded by the fight with Turak. So like there's a double fight at the end of the Great Hunt, and here you've got like a brief double fight, but Rand is way outgunned by Belal when it comes to sword fighting. But Rand is also balefired Darkhounds already. Why is Rand not balefiring Belal? I don't know.
He stopped to listen to him.
No.
He was being polite. Belal was talking.
At the very start of this episode, I alluded to the fact that the end of this book sort of just you rush through it, right? Like it suddenly just everything happens, and I was saying that it's maybe to the book's detriment. Again, Belal, like Willie was just saying, is just dealt with immediately. But I thought about it a little bit, and there's actually a comment I wanted to make about the book as a whole, like when we get there. But Ishamael is dealt with here over a protracted battle. Like, this rivalry and these fights between Rand and Ishamael have happened now over 3 books. So while Belal is sort of like, he's the next guy in line, like he's the next level boss to fight, Ishamael has constantly been there. And the real fight, the real end of the book is the fight with Ishamael and not really Belal.
Yeah.
Belal is dealt with summarily by Moiraine, but
in completion,
Ishamal's the real ending.
Yeah, because I did some research when we did that. When I was the only one that could, that charity stream, that What charity stream. I did a bit of research on the Forsaken as well, and read up about Belal, and then he was in this book, and I was expecting to see more of him. We learn that he is in the city and that he is ruling, and Moiraine goes off on her little adventures, but we never get any point of view from him. Like, we've been to Camelin, we've seen from Gabriel's perspective, we've Ravine, we've seen him and what he's up to and his plans, but we never see anything about Belal. The first time we see him or hear him speak is when he comes into the stone and he says like 10 lines and then he's dead. So I was a bit disappointed with that. He seems like an interesting guy.
Yeah, and in that dream when he argues with Ravine, but
you don't know it's even him.
Hear what they're saying. No, you don't.
It's not identified. It's just 3 men that we don't know who they are. But anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, we're not done yet. There's another chapter.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's get on with it. Then we can come back to this.
Right. So, chapter 56 is called The People of the Dragon. I don't think there's a there. I think it's just People of the Dragon.
People of the Dragon.
Chapter 56, Some People of the Dragon. Willie.
Yes, the people of the dragon have all had a dream last night in Tia, in full color HD 4K. They all saw the battle. They woke up, and the first thing they did was shout, "Althor, the Dragon Reborn! Althor, the Dragon!" And they don't stop throughout this chapter. They just chanting that. They just so stoked that their nightmare is over, that someone actually killed their nightmare in their dreams for them. So that's it. Then the debrief. 2 parts to this chapter.
Is that it?
Matt, Rock, Bainan Chide, Moiraine, Egwene, Nynaeve, Elaine, Vinda, they are all in the stone or the keep, in the sort of debrief, or what you'd saw the Lord room. They are now all royalty there. And
Meeting room 7.
They're having their little sort of debrief about what just happened. Matt he doesn't quite understand all of that. Just quickly, he can't believe that Perrin is here. And where is he? No, he's on the other side of town in an inn. Well, I hope he probably has gone in to go and save his girl or his traveling companion. Her, is all she says. And of course, to that, Egwene's like, who's this? That's who's his traveling companion? And it's like, then he's like, Moiraine is like, no, we'll deal with that later. I need to just get this done, and then I'll go there and see if they need any more help. But they could potentially still be in a lot of trouble.
Yes.
He's bleeding to death as we speak.
Yes.
Then Moiraine continues to share some more news with him in the form of putting a big seal on the table made from quinja that is whole and intact, which means 7 is in total, 3 is broken, and they've got 1 whole, and there's 3 assumingly whole or broken ones out there.
Moiraine straight up says that 4 are still whole. She assumes that the others are unbroken.
Yeah, she does. And I don't know why. It was a little bit odd
Yeah,
for
I
me
don't know
that she
why
went
either.
straight to that they whole. But they can only see 1 that's whole, so they really don't know. She's obviously found a treasure trove along with that seal of Angriels and Sa'angriels or Terangriels there.
Yeah.
So
A twisted
Moraine's
stone
got
doorway,
new
perhaps?
toys. You don't know. There's a whole heap of things that she
I do.
found
You
over
do.
there. Matt then sort of goes on like, well, does this now mean that we are the people of the dragon? These bloody Aiel, 100 bloody Aiel in us. It's like that. And even Rourke at that moment gives him an eye like, are we the bloody Aiel now, mate? But yeah, that's when...
Matt apologizes. He says, sorry, slip of the tongue.
Sorry, slip of the tongue. But then Rourke starts talking about, obviously, the journey that all the clan chiefs have to make to Viridian, and the wise one. What do they call them? Wise dreamers? What?
Wise ones.
Wise ones, yeah, have to do if they going to become... and then pulls up his sleeve and actually reveals the dragon on his arm because he's a clan chief. And he says, the Aiel have always been the people of the dragon. Dum, dum, dum. And the penny drops in the room and everyone goes, oh. So the doors then, or one of the big doors to this grand room then opens up, and in walks a very attractive woman that Matt is immediately taken by her presence and the size of her bosom, as Matt would be. And she's like, I'm not used to being treated like this, but there's a message for you. And she gives this message to Moiraine. Moraine's like, well, who are you, child? Do you just barge in here? And she's like, oh, well, I'm Berlaine, first of
Maine?
Maine.
Maine.
And
she's from Maine.
And she's got the message from Lanfear, where again Lanfear now signs her letter in her name, Lanfear. Like Lewis there in his mind has always been, he's just yours temporary, like that. I'll get him, the same old spiel. She's hot on the Lewis trail. And so they all kind of looking at Matt, wondering if he's now going to continue on, and that he's very much part of this. Because Matt sort of at that moment thinks, okay, well, it's all done. It's over. The horn has been blown. The last battle is not necessary. Rand killed whatever he killed. And I think he even says Shaitan. And Moraine's like, shut your fool mouth. You can't talk like that over here. You'll bring everything down on us. You know nothing yet. And with the reading of the note, she's like looking at Matt and saying like, oh, well, does that prove your point that this is not over? And he's like, oh, well, thinking to himself, well, if this isn't over, I wonder if Perrin's up for a journey. Let's go get Perrin and Tom and carry on with it. And to that, they still hear the chanting on the outside of Althor, the dragon, Althor, the dragon. Yeah, and that's that little debrief chapter done.
Yeah, we also get the confirmation here of what Varen's mysterious parchment means when they speculate about whether this maybe was just Ishamael. Egwene pipes up and she says, well, Varen showed me this thing that was very confusing, all about like names within names and Baalzamon, Ishamael, and that at the time when we read it and we wondered like, what the fuck could this actually mean? We did say that maybe it's just referred to again right at the end to connect the dots and let Moiraine figure out. And that's exactly what happened.
Yep. And we had it right as well. We did say that it meant that Ishamael is
Yeah.
Belzamon. Very
But we
complicated,
knew
silly way
that.
of saying, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how Matt also, when he's thinking about Rand being the Dragon Reborn, he goes, well, maybe he is. Like, well, maybe he is. Like, still not convinced. He's like, maybe he's the Dragon Reborn. I don't know.
Everyone seems
Nothing
to think so.
sways him. Nothing throws him off his track.
No.
He's just like, yeah, well, I'm used to rolling with queens and kings and everything now in between. What's a
He's
Dragon Reborn
very
gonna be
quickly
different
got
to
a
me?
very high opinion of himself.
Mm.
But he does say a cool thing about Perrin. He mentions that he was surprised that Perrin wasn't in the stone because he doesn't know about what Perrin was doing in Tel'aran'rhiod.
Perrin
But,
was in the stone.
He was. But Matt's surprised because he says Perrin is usually braver than anyone with good sense.
Huh.
Like, Matt looks at Perrin as being the brave one, which is not something you hear people say about Perrin much. Like, always that he's considerate and blah, 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 but they don't mention his bravery specifically.
Oh, he's got a heaps of it.
Matt also talks about trying to hook up with like Bane or Chayat, and
Yeah.
he says that he struggles to get either one of them alone to sort of like try and like charm them, and that all the Aiel think that it's hilarious, and Bane and Chayat seem to think it's funny as well. I had never considered this before, but are they a couple?
Bane and Chide.
Yes.
I don't think so.
They're first sisters.
Yes. First sisters from different clans, and like they became first sisters against what people thought was their better judgment. Remember, like they were doing it because they would always have each other's back.
Yeah.
Like they became first sisters against even the Aiel norm.
But don't they marry Rurak or
Gaul.
Gaul? Sorry, Gaul.
One of them, I think, towards the end, but there's a lot of polyamory going on in the Winter.
Hey,
I mean, Rand has
maybe they
wives,
are
right?
partners.
I'm starting to read it that way now in my older age and my slightly more advanced thinking. Like, why would it be funny that Matt is trying to get together with, or trying to split them up to get one of them alone? Of course, like if they're a couple already, Matt stands no chance.
Well, that does seem
Stands to be reasoned, I suppose.
I'm going to read their interactions now and see if that lens fits.
No, but what Willie said as well. Like, also, I remember them getting married to Gaul. Like, that's why I was thrown off. But yeah,
one of them, I think,
Hey, but then again,
is
bisexual
interested,
is also
but
a thing.
because they're first sisters, they both do. Because I think one of them is into Gaul, or they both agree between them that they will allow Gaul into their setup.
Ah, okay. Party of three.
Just this line just then sparked that thought, like, okay, well, maybe it's funny to the Aiel because they know that Bane and Chayat are a couple, and Matt's like barking up the wrong tree. Berylane is already annoying.
Now,
Yeah.
I
Her
remember
hair.
very little of her, so it's all going to be sort of quick
She's
reaction.
not a particularly deep character. She travels with Perrin and serves as a antagonist for Aiel. She is the hawk on Perrin's other shoulder. She's super
okay.
interested in Perrin, is always putting herself into situations where she's alone with Perrin. And like she's just done here, she tells them, like, tell the Dragon Reborn he's having dinner with me tonight, like that sort of thing. Like, it's the fucking Dragon Reborn, Berylane. Just, you're the first of Mayene,
Yeah.
know your place. But just already annoying. Maybe just because I know how annoying she's going to be.
Well, from here on out, it's very hazy for me up until, I would say, book 5.
No, 5.
Yeah, actually, book 4 I don't remember a
Nah,
lot of. Book 5, do my wells.
Is that in book 5 already? Jeez.
I'm thinking 6.
Yeah, I think it's book 5.
See,
6.
we don't know. We know nothing. Forget it. Stop trying to figure it out. We know nothing. Rowan wrote in and he said, here's another nod to the theory of Ishamael not actually being bound like the others when Moiraine herself says perhaps he was never entirely bound.
Mm.
She says it.
That's pretty obvious. That's pretty clear.
That's Moraine's guess.
Yeah.
She doesn't know it. She's speculating, but it supports that theory.
She's not often wrong, even in her guesses.
Except she doesn't know what the fuck the career-thon cycle has to do with the Aiel.
Morris is not
Rand
gonna let
looks
that
like
go.
an Aiel. Rand looks like one. Come on. Anything else?
Mm-mm.
Nope.
Okie dokes. Well, then let's step into our favorite moments. That's a fake reaction, Jody. I know you picked one.
I wasn't trying to imply anything with that eye roll.
I had just recently gone back and listened to all of our favorite moments from this book, so I have all of our conversations about you not picking one fresh in my mind.
It's more often than not, I forget.
It's actually not so bad. It's not so bad. So why don't you tell us, Joe, what was your favorite moment
Oh,
from the
shit,
stretch?
put me on the spot. My favorite moment is Matt. Just Matt.
Full stop.
Particularly on the 1 meter wide wall, 40 meters up, that little encounter that he has, how he dances really well for someone taken by surprise. Again, this is the second mention that the Aiel is given to one of our three main protagonists. First, it was Gaul to Perrin, like, well, you dance pretty well, like they're impressed immediately by these guys. Matt being one of them. He is taken by surprise. He still puts up a pretty good fight, and then immediately he starts thinking about maybe he'll like to dance with one of these maidens, and just like everything within 5-second period is like everything about Matt to the extreme.
And when he's outnumbered, like he just tries to charm them. He tries to enlist their help. He's like, I'm going in to save some people. Hey, maybe you guys can come and help me do my thing. I don't know what you guys are doing, but come do my thing.
Uber Matt on that little interaction on the wall.
I've got a big grin on my face because that is also my favorite moment.
Oh, no.
The exact same thing. The whole interaction with Matt and Julian and the Aiel on the roof.
Yeah. Sorry, man. You should have gone first.
No, don't be sorry. Great minds think alike.
Indeed.
How about you, Vil?
It's very much Matt related, but mine is going to be the lead up to him, and this is two portions of how the stories were split into their little bits in 2 chapters, into 6 mini chapters. The fighting of the defenders after blowing a hole in the stone, and then knocking them out with Julian, and Julian using his not quarterstaff, his bamboo whipstaff, and then saving the girls, and then being totally chastised for it.
Risking his life time and time again. Yeah.
He's pushing his luck and he's doing it. But yes, absolutely. For me in this section of Read, Matt, totally.
We had a couple listener submissions as well. Rowan said that Matt dynamiting the Stone of Tear was his favorite moment. Adrian said, knowing that this is a chapter she reads often, when Hopper says, "Then we hunt, brother." That's her favorite moment, specific moment. But she also mentioned the fact that everyone's true colors start to shine through in this section, right? Matt being heroic, Perrin loves Fael, Rand kicks ass when he must, Moiraine admitting to herself that there are gaps in her own knowledge. Like everyone, like there's no more pretending anymore. Everyone's true colors really do shine through, which is really cool.
And Rand proclaiming himself the Dragon Reborn, admitting it to the world.
Yes, that he truly is the Dragon Reborn, yeah. So, before we get into our favorite moment from the series, do you guys want to talk about the book a little bit? Like, do you have any thoughts about this book in particular?
I do. I was kind of disappointed. I thought it started strong and built up, and then it had this lull. Just before the end, and then everything rushes to finish towards the end. Like these last chapters we did now, but the previous episode we did was it was interesting, but I think that the pacing kind of like drops off completely in the third quarter and then picks up again towards the end. And like the whole Bilal thing as well felt rushed, and I felt there's a missed opportunity there. Just me complaining about things that are unchangeable at this point. But yeah, I was a bit disappointed in that. I got kind of bored towards the end of the middle part of the book, and then excited again towards the end.
Okay. Interesting, because I mean, there is a lot of stuff that happens, like Matt encountering Komar, the Black Archer capturing the girls. The episode before that, like easing the Badger, the Grey Men attack, the Darkhounds outside the city again. Like, there's a lot of stuff happening, but maybe not on the scale that you're expecting to see toward the end of the book. Like, maybe you're expecting to see a build up to that final confrontation, and not just these sort of random dispersed things that are cool, but not necessarily relevant to a ramp up to a climax. You know, they sort of standalone cool moments and not part of a bigger build-up. If I'm reading you correctly.
No, you read it perfectly. That is a very good summary of what my feelings are towards this. Yeah, I'm not denying that there are cool scenes, but they're just like these. They happen and then they're over. And what are they got to do with what we're doing and what our mission is?
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah,
for sure.
I have at the first reading of the Dragon Reborn, I was so focused on Rand and his story that I missed half the book.
Yeah, because Rand is hardly in it.
The Dragon Reborn is not in a book called The Dragon Reborn.
Pretty much. And it took away from, because I read to catch up with what Rand is doing, and I didn't really focus on all these different character building and relationship building and everything else that's happening in the other boys and girls in the story. So for me, it was great. I loved the book. I don't have much bad to say about it. The only thing is if Robert Jordan treats a lady like he writes a book, there's hours and hours of foreplay and fun, and then a 30-second climax at the end, because it just blows his load when he sticks it in. Because come on, man, you cannot do a battle in 2 fucking chapters, and you have Darkhounds going for half the book terrorizing a person, but then you got 2 Forsaken that get taken out in 3 swift sentences. Like, get your fucking facts right. Oh, I don't know. A little bit of
that meeting in Swan's study earlier in the book spans 3 chapters. You know?
Yes,
that gets more pages than the death of 2 Forsaken.
And even Ishamael's, that battle between Rand and Ishamael, it's boring. Like, I didn't even go over it a second time. Like, it's just so surreal and abstract. It's like, okay, incredible things are happening, but there's no mechanics behind it. There's no rules or laws. He just does that. No. He doesn't know what he's doing or how he did it, but he does it.
There's no like clever use of something that you've been hinted at before and now employed in a different way, like in a very Brandon Sanderson-esque sort of like, turning what you know upside down and that making it a cool sort of revelatory ending or anything. It's very almost rote, like it's just straightforward down the middle. It's true. I mean, these books are old. And I mean, I think an aspect of what you're talking about, Willie, like when you read it the first time, when you were just reading to follow Rand's story, is what probably all of us did when we were in high school when we read it. Because, back in those days, you weren't really reading a lot of books that had this massive cast of like all important characters. It's always the hero's journey, right?
Yeah,
like it's this one person with a couple hangers on, maybe a couple scenes off to the side. So it was... I know that, or I had heard or read that, Robert Jordan was sort of like biting off a lot here by introducing a broad cast of characters that, all need a lot of time to develop and, need a lot of page time. The first book is mostly out of Rand's point of view.
Yeah.
Even the second book is also mostly him. And then in the third book, he's just not there at all. So in high school, you'd be like, where did he go? Isn't there, I feel like there's a book later on where Perrin is not mentioned in the entire book. Like it really begins to, like, what we're seeing here is already kind of like, whoa, a diverse cast, but we're still talking about the main characters, right? It's still just Egwene, Nynaeve, Rand, Matt, and Perrin, where later, like, it's even bigger. And yeah, there are whole stretches of the book where, one of the three boys is not mentioned once. So yeah, that's a valid observation, of course. There's also what I got from it is that it is I might have actually absorbed this from another Daniel Green video that I watched recently, where there's mention of it is kind of tropey that the whole premise of the book is that people have these dreams and they go to this place because they dreamt about it, and then there's a fight and then it's over.
Yeah.
But what is cool here is that like the whole world of dreams and the mechanisms around it are well established by this point. They really elaborate on it here. After Egwene gets the dream to Rangril, and there's even like with the new knowledge you gain in this book, you look at some of the scenes from like the first and second book, you do get an appreciation for the world of dreams as a plot device, and it makes sense, like for the Forsaken to use dreams in a very practical way to affect the cities that they're based in, or to lure Rand to the heart of the stone. And I mean, I think we've said it in the previous episode as well, Moiraine is also just kind of scanning the whole time for what are the signs pointing towards. In the first book, okay, all these converging stories about the Eye of the World, it must mean we must be at the Eye of the World, let's go there. And then like you're reading the prophecies in book 2 about the watchers over the waves, and like, oh, the Seanchan are gathering there. Okay, I've heard there's a black dark prophecy scrawled in the dungeons of Feldara about this. Okay, this must mean something's going to happen, let's just go there. Now everyone's having dreams about the Heart of the Stone and Kalandor. Okay, cool, I guess something's going to happen there, let's just go be there and be ready for it. So it is on the surface very like, oh yeah, fantasy story, oh, they had a dream, did they? Cool. And then they went there and then there was a fight and that's where they happened to be supposed to be. But I feel like it's earned. Cool, thanks guys.
Willie, not impressed. That does remind me of something as well. In this book, there's only a mention of the Seanchan, who play like a massive, massive role, and they disappear for the entire book. Oh, they got chased away in book 2. And all right. I mean, I feel like you could have. There's a lot of Seanchan story that comes in later that could have been spread out over these books. We could have been jumping back to them, going, yes, what's happening with them in the meantime, in the background, regrouping and coming back, which is like nothing.
Especially with Tion specifically, right? Like how she comes to be, because she doesn't come across the ocean as the Empress, does she? She's in mourning or something.
Yeah, because her mother's still the Empress.
There's a transition period, yeah. How did you guys feel about the pacing of the book? I mean, I feel like there's very little filler. I mean, in general, they're not sitting around. I mean, in the tower there in the beginning, there was a little bit of that, like we had in Feldara in the beginning of the Great Hunt. But then once, the girls are set the task of finding the Black Archer, they literally leave the study and are shot at by a grey man. And then, it's off to the races.
Tower time for me was good. And I mean, also remember, Tower time is where Matt had bested Gawain and Galad. There's a lot of stuff that happens in Tower time that's really good. So there's no drawn out apple carts in this book for me.
No.
I can't say that there is any. It's a great read. I love it. I absolutely loved it. Everything about it was great. I just would have loved it to be 6 chapters towards the end that becomes
to build a bit more
their storylines merging together and actually see them tie in, not just a
flash of Rand running in the distance.
And Moiraine all of a sudden it's just by Rand, but Rand just scurries off through a secret door hole, and it's like actually them coming together in almost like Avengers style, like towards the end they all stand together, and there's too much. I have my own little fight with this, and you have your own little fight with that, and we're just going to try and make it as short as possible so that we can get a debrief because my ink is running out on my typewriter today.
Wow, harsh. I absolutely love it, and then 5 minutes of shitting on it.
Well, look, I mean, think, what is Matt going to do against the Forsaken? What's Perrin going to do against the Forsaken?
Throw some dice.
They can't even step into that ring. They have to have their own little thing happening off to the side, and I mean it does still happen in the same place, and they do still see each other, albeit just like
in the distance,
running down a corridor. But it is cool, like, in the world of dreams as well, like, Perrin sees Rand there, and it's only after Rand has stepped into the world of dreams to chase Ishamael. So like their paths are crossing I found in an interesting way. But I do also agree that like the ending doesn't, in either this book or the Eye of the World, don't necessarily feel earned. Like you haven't invested enough in the bad guy to feel great satisfaction after they are bested. It's a little empty. It's like a hollow victory.
Yeah, totally.
With pacing, like it's not a gradual incline. Like my graph of pacing it starts like that, and then it dips almost towards the end, and then peaks it again at the end. Whereas I was watching a Neighborless video the other day, actually, ages ago. If you're not watching this dude on YouTube, to our listeners, go check him out. And he was doing like the best books of the series, and he's got book 4 as number 1 as his favorite book because of the pacing. And that is apparently that line that goes up and up and up and up and up, and it's just fantastic. So I am really looking forward to this next book.
Well, it sounds like Christina has also like taken the bait.
She's done. She's finished with it. She's on book 5 already. So
amazing. All right. So do you guys want to choose a favorite moment from the book? Now, in the past, I've rattled off all of our previous favorite moments from previous episodes as a sort of fun little walk down memory lane. But what I've found is that they are really not that material in picking a favorite thing from the book, because a favorite theme or series of events from the book as a whole is often a bit more high level than a simple moment. I mean, it doesn't have to be. I mean, your favorite moment could literally be when Matt's quarterstaff makes contact with Galad's head, like whatever that may be. But do you want me to rattle off all of our previous favorite moments?
No, let's not rattle it off, because
dude, this is enough rattling, I think.
Yeah, that's why I thought I'd ask, even on air, like we don't have to go down that path. So, okay, Willie, you seem eager to tell us your favorite part of the book. Why don't you tell us what it is?
My favorite long-winded section, not long-winded, long built-up love story of Perrin and Aiel. That comes, the biggest coming together of this book for me is their story. His battle to free her, literally the only person that is cut up to shreds in this book at the end. He's the one that's laying down and bleeding. And that sort of moment where he calls her Aiel, as well as her referring to him as Perrin, and that's the sort of that spark is now just clicked and gone. It's that is my favorite whole thing throughout this book.
Yeah, it is awesome. And there you do get that payoff after a long build that we were talking about before, that you don't get from the main fight against the antagonist. Yeah, you've got Perrin and Aiel over chapters and chapters of like excruciating details, sometimes like infuriatingly, like, oh God, guys, just get a room, like. But when it does happen, when they do sort of let their guard down a bit, it is very rewarding. I also liked it a lot. I like Aiel. A lot of readers don't, but I love her.
I do, and what I did like was that his fight to free her was not against any one person. He wasn't taking on a character. It was Pierre himself going determined into something he didn't know, to just physically break a chain with his hands. It's
sheer force of
almost
will,
like a sheer force of will.
Tests.
Yeah, mental, lot more than just physical strength, which he has got ample of. Hashtag beefy boy.
As he demonstrated when he was lowering Gaul down in that cage by himself.
Yes.
Even Gaul went like, oh, it took 3 guys to put me up there.
Yeah.
Or when he raised Zareen onto the saddle by just lifting her up with one hand.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
I love those little flashes of
giggled and screamed with joy behind him as he galloped away. Yeah, no, I didn't think about that, Willie. But that is like what Moritz said, the literal only build up and payoff we get in this book. The only, I say, but the most rewarding one. Good choice, Willie.
Yeah, agreed. Very good choice. How about you, Joe?
As a standout moment, I'm still sticking with Matt quarterstaffing those royal brothers to a pulp in the practice yard as a standalone moment. But I
It
think,
is a shocking one. It comes
yeah,
out of nowhere, hey?
yeah,
To a new reader. Like, Matt is sick when he's doing that. He's just gotten out of bed.
yeah. And that's the other point I want to make about this. This book is a very Matt-centric book. This is really where Matt shines. Like the previous book, book 1, we get to know him a little bit. Book 2, he's sick and bitching and moaning all the time and passed out at the end. But in book 3 now, he gets healed in the beginning and he starts this journey and this whole relationship that he builds with Tom, and his luck kicks in, and we really get to see his inner monologue and his charming side, and like that also builds up towards the end over there, but also has like an anticlimactic thing because nothing really happens. Like he saves the girls and then they bitch on him for about it, and it's like, oh, okay, and then he follows them.
I'm going to defend his arc because it is my favorite part of the book.
Yeah, look, I love Matt in this book.
That's my favorite book moment or book theme, is getting to know the real Matt. Like,
Yes.
finally, the Matt that we know and love is emerging here.
Yes.
And it's like you said, like in book 1, we had plenty of time with Rand to explore all Rand's, insecurities and all his thoughts and all his points of view. We get a lot of time with Perrin. In all 3 books, like,
Yeah.
Perrin coming to grips with his wolfishness, sort of like spread across the 3 books instead of, focused in one book. But Matt is basically nowhere to be seen. Shadow Logoth is so early in book 1. And from then on, he deteriorates quickly into just someone that you actually don't want them to be around. And like the way he treats Rand at times is not great. And then to see him and to like get all the points of view from him in this book, and just how he's like so quintessentially Matt all the time, right? Like he's thinking about stealing kisses from Aes Sedai, Forsaken, Aiel.
Yeah.
Like he's always like up for gambling. He's always trying to get Tom like, oh, don't you want to play dice instead of stones? Like he is so consistent. And I feel like, sure, he doesn't accomplish a lot in the main plot in this book.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
But he does get to a point of throwing himself in against all odds, choice words there, against all odds into life-threatening danger to save the girls. Where previously he had come across as a guy that is just out to look out for number 1, right? Like he's only looking out for himself. And here, even despite his grumbling and like, I'm no bloody hero and blah, 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 he is fully committed to risking his life time and time again to save his friends, which is not a side of him that you see in any of the other books. So I feel like there is an arc for Matt, which doesn't necessarily manifest in results in the real world, but it does result in acts of extreme bravery and selflessness.
I couldn't agree more. I totally, like character development wise, a complete arc, complete growth, and that is that long vertical line up to the. But in the book, what does he accomplish? Like his mission for the last half of the book has been to save the girls.
Yeah,
and he does, and they're like they kind of already half saved themselves, and then they give him shit about it, and then they run off, and he just follows them. So it's kind of like
for a large part of the book, it's to deliver a letter.
Yeah, the first half is deliver a letter. Second half, save the girls.
Yeah,
but yeah,
if you can. Rowan wrote in with another contribution and a favorite moment for the book, and it was basically just the introduction of the Aiel. Like everything about them. Like we get a solid dip into their culture in this book already, and I mean in the next book it's just going to escalate in a massive way, right? But we get a really great look at the Aiel and how they behave, or a glimpse, actually, I should say, because I mean it's really delved into, like I said, in the next book. But I mean, massive Aiel characters: Ruach, Avienda, Bane and Chiad, Gaul. They're like front and center here, and I'm again frothing to get into the waste and like,
dude, we're heading to the threefold land.
Oh man, it is going to be so good.
Yeah.
What a ride. Hey, what a ride. Before we talk about what the next episode is going to be, I just wanted to say thank you to all of our listeners that have stuck with us for this long. I mean, we're 3 books in now, and if you've come this far, I'm willing to bet that you're going to come with us for the whole ride, or as long as we can go, which is hopefully going to be the whole ride. The regular contributors, I mean, the friends of the show that we keep bringing up here that send in their favorite moments and just general thoughts and correct our theories, everyone interacting with us on Twitter, other content creators. It's really great to have that conversation with everyone. So people that are reading the series now to also, experience the series at the same pace at the show, which I know there are a couple of them out there, is also just fucking amazing. Like, I mean, that's really cool. Thanks for doing that. So this week I'm not gonna plug any social media links or anything. All I'm gonna say is thanks to everyone that has listened thus far, and I hope you stick with us. We will continue to do our best to at least entertain you with our much maligned rambling and pedantry, which, when I say it out loud, does not sound that entertaining at all. Okay, so in our next episode, Book Bloody 4, The Shadow Rising. Oh, man. I'm going to try something new. You guys don't look nearly as shocked as I thought you would. I think we're going to try something new with Book 4, which is just shy of 1,000 pages long. And I'm going to try to keep each episode that we record to covering round about 100 pages, or as near as I can get to that, which should have us do about 10 episodes, which is what we're doing anyway. But it might stop us from, like, having wildly different episode lengths, depending on how long some of the chapters are. And I'll be honest, the first thing that tipped me off to this is the first chapter in book 4 is 40 pages.
Yes, there's no prologue, and it's just this super long chapter.
And then the next one is 38 pages. It's huge. So for episode 1 of season 4, which is actually our episode 28, just to make things extra confusing, we'll be covering chapters 1 through 4, which is Seeds of Shadow through to the end of chapter 4 called Strings. Like I said, chapters 1 and 2 are huge. I'll do the reading and I'll consult with you guys and find out who does what chapter, because at this stage I'm still completely in the dark. I've got no idea. But yes, I hope everyone has either got book 4 on their shelf or in the mail, or ready to download or to get on audiobook, because in 2 weeks' time we will be covering the first 4 chapters of The Shadow Rising. But on that exciting note, I will say goodbye to all our listeners, and I will join you all next time.
Cheers. I'll see you all in the threefold land.
Welterusten.